the richest human being who's ever lived? And more than that, how much you think he might have been worth? Well, a rich list, or compiled by an American website, has some very interesting answers.
Ever seen this man? No? Well, you're not alone. But what if we told you he is the richest human being ever in all of recorded human history? And his fortune? Wait for it. $400 billion. Yes, you heard that right. This is Mansa Musa I. Mansa, who lived in the 1300s and ruled West Africa's Mali, tops the list of 25 richest people of all time, brought out by the Celebrity Net Worth website. The list uses the annual 2,199.6% rate of inflation to adjust historic fortunes. This means that $100 million in 1913 would be equal to roughly $3.7 billion today. Interestingly, the list, which is meant to compile the top 25 richest people of all time, lists the top 26, the 26th being American Warren Buffett with a net worth of $64 billion. But there's some interesting highlights in this list. Firstly, there are no women on the list. 14 out of the top 25 are American nationals. All the people on the list are either aristocrats or kings. Carlos Slim, the current richest person in the world, isn't even in the top 20, coming in at 22nd place with $68 billion. There is, however, an Indian presence on the list, with Mir Osman Ali Khan, the last ruler of Hyderabad, who died in 1967, coming in at 6th spot, with a fortune of $236 billion.
Marcus Garvey, that little short black man from St. Anne. Trust me, man. Believe you me. He should be taught in the churches.
The Right Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, who came from the humble village of St. Anne, who has inspired millions of people across the diaspora. When you go to Senegal, you talk about Marcus Garvey. When you go to the United States of America, they talk about Marcus Garvey. When you go to the United Kingdom, they speak about Marcus Garvey. All of Jamaica should be proud to salute this man, because this black man, this short, ugly black man, as we, as Jamaican, classify him, all the names that we call him, is the greatest black man that was ever born on the planet.
Marcus Garvey, a real pioneer, see, yeah man, the real hero. Everton Blender said that.
Yes. He was a leader, he was like a president.
Yes.
In other words, a messiah of the black man.
Marcus Garvey is the prophet of prophets of prophets of prophets. Yeah! Rastafari.
Marcus Garvey teaching embedded in Paul Elliott, the chosen one.
Ethiopia, thou land of our fathers, thou land where the gods love to be. A storm cloud at night suddenly gathers, all armies come rushing to thee. We must in the fight be victorious, when swords are thrust outward to gleam. For us will the victory be glorious, when led by the red, black and green. Advance, advance to victory, let Africa be free. Advance to meet the foe, advance to meet the foe, with the might of the red, the black and the green, with the might of the red, the black and the green. O Jehovah, thou God of the ages, grant unto our sons that read the wisdom thou gave to thy sages when Israel was sore in need. Thy voice to the dim past was spoken, Ethiopia shall stretch forth her hand. By thee shall all fetters be broken, and heaven bless our dear motherland. Advance, advance, to victory, let Africa be free. Advance to meet the foe, advance to meet the foe, with the might of the red, the black and the green, with the might of the red, the black and the green.
In the name of the African ancestors who began the march of humankind in the womb of Mother Africa, we ask these ancestors to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. In the name of the African ancestors who began the march of humankind in the womb of Mother Africa and marched down the Nile, laying the foundations for human civilization and culture, we ask these Africans to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. In the name of these African ancestors who built their pyramids and their temples to their God concepts, to their principles, and to their moral values, who left us a legacy of architectural and monumental building unparalleled in the history of the world, we ask these ancestors who built the pyramids, who built the temples, to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. We ask these African ancestors who took this African culture and extended it throughout Africa, building the stone cities of Zimbabwe, building the empires of the Sudan, Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, building the Swahili city-states along the east coast of Africa, and in Christian Africa asking King Lalibela and giving him the courage to build the 12 churches of Lalibela from the ground down, monuments to the world. We ask these Africans who spread this culture to the Dogo and to the Akan and to the Yoruba and to the Bankango and to the Zulu. We ask these Africans to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. In the name of the Africans who opened up Africa, opened up the Nile Valley to other cultures and other peoples, and they came in and nurtured themselves on the African greatness. First coming in early with the ancient Hebrews, and they synthesized this culture and produced Judaism. Later coming in were the Christians, and they synthesized this culture and produced Christianity. Coming in were also the Greeks, who took the African culture, synthesized it, and produced Greek civilization. And then later, the Prophet Muhammad, and with the Arabs coming into the Nile Valley, they synthesized the culture and produced Islam. We ask these African ancestors, who as part of their legacy laid the foundations for Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and Greek civilization, to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. We ask those African ancestors pulled out of Africa, taken to the hells of North America, South America, the Caribbean, maintaining the spirit of African humanity in their hearts and in their minds, and who left us this enormous legacy of struggle. We ask those Africans who resisted enslavement in the villages of Africa, who resisted enslavement in the shores of Africa, who resisted enslavement in those forts and dungeons, who resisted enslavement in the holds of those ships, who resisted enslavement when they arrived on these shores in the New World. We ask these Africans who ran into the highlands of northeast Brazil and established for 100 years the first free republic in the Americas, the Republic of Palmares, and their last great leader, Zumbi, who spared and sacrificed. We ask these Africans who replicated the Brazilian experience and went into the highlands of Jamaica and became the maroon-free communities. We ask these Africans who went into the backwoods of the Guyanas and Suriname and created free republic of the Suramaka and the Ajuka. We ask these Africans who went into the backwoods of Georgia and the swamps of Florida and moved with the Seminole Indians and resisted oppression. We ask these Africans who left us a legacy of struggle and resistance, the likes of which no one in the world has, to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. We ask these Africans who created and laid for us a foundation of struggle and resistance that was passed on generation after generation, that was passed on to Harriet Tubman, who fought her way out of enslavement and became a symbol of freedom for all of us. Similarly, Frederick Douglass and hundreds of thousands of others fought their way out of enslavement. We ask those Africans who went with Boukman Dessalines to create the greatest revolutionary experience in the history of the world, the Haitian Revolution, leaving us a legacy, the likes of which no one else has had. We ask these Africans to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future.
calling their names, calling all their names on Sunday. That's next Sunday. Close to 500 of them as we pay tribute. Over 1,000 were killed in the Morant Bay massacre by the order of the British government, and they tell us to forget. They tell us to move on. They tell us to look to the future. And we are doing that because we are the people who understand the Sankofa, that there is no shame in going back to the past to correct the mistakes and also to take the best from the past. So we know there is no shame in revisiting that period. In the words of Morlemu Marcus Messiah Garvey, drawing upon our past experiences as we move into the future, understanding that if we forget, then we're liable to make the same mistakes again. That if we forget, then they will continue to re-enslave. So we've got a moral obligation to remember, to ensure it doesn't happen again. And we've got a moral obligation to memorialize, to ensure that we honor those who stood up against oppression and injustice.
Speak truth to the people. To identify the enemy is to free the mind. Free the mind of the people. Speak to the mind of the people. Speak truth. Nothing from the masses of the people. Tell no lies. Expose lies whenever they are told. Mask no difficulties, mistakes, failures. Claim no easy victory.
The lips of the righteous teaches many. The rich man's wealth is in the city. Fixation of the soul is vanity. Destruction of the poor is their poverty. The poor man's wealth is in a holy, holy place. Why do you fight each other? nation. Clean up Jah creation.
Many, but fools die for want of wisdom. The rich man's wealth is in the city. Fixation of the soul is vanity. Destruction of poor people is poverty. The poor man's wealth is in a holy place.
We lose our royal connection. When we disconnect ourselves from Africa, we cease to be a world people. Without the African connection, we are a disjointed people, begging for the entry into somebody else's house.
Trapped on this slave ship. My history cultured personality locked in its dungeon. They'll keep us of the dreams, cruel and barbaric. Whips, chains, and castrations are our daily diet. The whale cut through the piss and the shit as the vomit took from chin to chin. It's easy to realize we might not see hope again. Even the sun is unfriendly as the breezes turn cold. The women raped, the children starved, and no hope for the old. Ancestors, please help make the people free. They won't listen to me. I've been traveling through a hell not of my making. Now I speak many tongues, but my own has been chased away. Dressed in garments fit for clowns,
you who have come before me. Help make our families whole again. Help me use my mind to develop strong Watotos who will defend me against the rapes you knew. Let them protect me against the theft of my identity and consciousness. Let them swing the sword of the warrior and kiss with tenderness the frail tomorrows promised me long ago. Let them join their father and I in the eradication of our continued exploitation. But most of all, let them return me to my station, to my powerful throne, for I am Africa's daughter, trapped on this slave ship. I am Africa's daughter, floating away on this slave ship. Ancestors, please help make the people see. They won't listen to me. Ancestors, please help we.
Where's my new black baby? Please help make you people see. Ancestors, please make you people see. They won't listen to me. No need for security.
People. To identify the enemy is to free the mind. Free the mind of the people. Speak to the mind of the people. Speak truth.
Bring forward your strong reasons and let us talk about reparation, compensation. Come forward and talk. The fathers of Africa were captured and carried away. Of Africa were captured and carried away. of Africa were captured and carried away by enslavers. They were branded as chattel and things to be. Yes, them was scattered and divided. They labored in agony. What shall you answer? Come now and answer. How can we ever forget our past? Give us your answer about reparation. For we shall never forget all the pain. The riches of Africa were stolen and taken.
During the first 200 years of colonial rule by Britain, Jamaica became the world's largest sugar exporting country. Today, as we continue to build our economy, the UK-Jamaica partnership has been vital to Jamaica's economic program, including our debt management efforts. The UK government's provision of substantial bilateral debt relief has been a major contribution to Jamaica's economic program, and I thank you.
The mothers of Africa were captured and carried away to the West Indies and Americas. Them take them and sell them as slaves in the West Indies and Americas. They lash them and force them to walk. What shall you answer?
We appreciate the view expressed that our relationship should be forward-looking. Nevertheless, we also believe that there must be genuine commitment to finding ways of repairing what is universally agreed to be the wrongs of the past.
The sons of Africa were captured and carried away. The daughters of Africa were captured and carried away by enslavers. They were branded as chattel and things to be.
Such relationships at the highest political level are vital for nurturing the partnerships between our respective peoples and expanding the scope of our bilateral agreement. While Cromwell's Western design did not initially identify Jamaica as a target for conquest, our small island has emerged over the past 360 years as a contributor to British cultural, economic, and political power.
The riches of Africa were stolen and taken away. Me said the wealth of Africa is scattered all over the world. In this scramble, that great gamble, the land was divided and shared.
You can now boast membership in a select group of illustrious persons who have graced our highest decision-making institution. You have joined the likes of Her Majesty the Queen, Sir Winston Churchill, Emperor Haile Selassie, and Nelson Mandela.
Fathers of Africa were captured and carried away. The mothers of Africa were captured and carried away. To the West Indies and Americas, them take them and sell them as slaves. In the West Indies and Americas, they lash them and force them to war.
And I've come here today not just with words of friendship, but with a real down payment on Britain's commitment to you. Today I can announce a major new package of British investment in this region. £360 million in new financial commitments, including a £300 million much needed infrastructure fund across the Caribbean. I'm launching a new UK Caribbean Infrastructure Partnership Fund to build real, tangible things that will make a difference for people across the Caribbean. Roads, bridges, ports, critical economic infrastructure that will set the foundations for growth and prosperity and in turn reduce poverty, while helping the region become more resilient to the risks of climate change.
And sell them as slaves in the West Indies and Americas. They lash them and force them to walk. What shall you answer? Come now and answer. How can we ever forget our past? Give us your answer about reparation, for we shall never forget all the change.
While there is much indeed to celebrate about our past, it would be wrong to do so while ignoring the most painful aspects of it. A period which should never be forgotten and from which history has drawn the bitterest of lessons. Slavery was and is abhorrent in all its forms. It has no place whatsoever in any civilized society, and Britain is proud to have eventually led the way in its abolition. That the Caribbean has emerged from the long dark shadow that it cast is testament to the resilience and spirit of its people. I acknowledge that these wounds run very deep indeed, but I do hope that as friends who have gone through so much together since those darkest of times, we can move on from this painful legacy and continue to build for the future.
Forget all the pain. The riches of Africa were stolen and taken away. Me said the Africa is scattered all over the world. In this scramble, that great gamble, the land was divided and shared. In this scramble, that great rumble, them take precious treasures away.
Black power! 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 Black power, 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 black power.
Fathers of Africa were captured and carried away. The mothers of Africa were captured and carried away. To the West Indies and Americas, them take them and sell them as slaves. In the West Indies and Americas, they lash them and force them to work. What shall you answer? Come now and answer. How can we ever forget our past? Give us your answer of reparation, for we shall never forget all the chains. The sons of Africa were captured and carried away. The daughters of Africa were captured and carried away. By enslavers, they were branded as chattel and things to be. Yes, them was scattered and divided. They labored in agony.
Never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another.
Come forward and talk. The fathers of Africa were captured and carried away. The mothers of Africa were captured and carried away. To the West Indies and Americas, them take them and sell them as slaves. In the West
Never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another.
How can we ever forget our past? Give us your answer of reparation, for we shall never.
So we asked for reparations. We demanded reparations. And the audacity, the temerity, the arrogance,
and carried away.
And in the most insulting of ways, the British came to their colony, of course, because it is what it is, and to Her Majesty's Parliament, and the lackeys in Parliament who represent government and opposition, regardless of what they say when they stand on their feet. So we say reparations, and they say, yeah, we give you a prison instead. It's a continuation of the triangular, the transatlantic trade in Africans. It's human trafficking. That is what it is. Trafficking in persons. So David Camron announced the biggest scam in human trafficking, and the Prime Minister of Jamaica applauded. So David Camron announced and insulted us in Her Majesty's Parliament, of course, so he has a right to do that. But we watch those people who we elected and selected to represent us in that place, God forbid, We watch them. We watch them genuflect. We watch them grovel. We watch them beg. And we watch them applaud our own insults. It's a sad day. I say to the Prime Minister of Jamaica, you have failed the people of Jamaica, and you have done so in the most abominable way that anyone could fail their people. On this one thing, there is no forgiveness. On this one thing, you have failed. Miserable. And I say to those who we have elected, you failed. We always did know that we have to find a new way. And I suppose now, once we get over the hurt, because I speak for myself this morning, that I hurt more than ever before. And maybe I shouldn't hurt, but from a spiritual perspective, my spirit is injured. I am hurting. There's not much I can say because I am hurt. And I've got to come to terms in my own mind, in my own head, in my own spirit with what we've just witnessed. And so you may ask why the hurt when you have always known? I'm coming to terms with that too.
No, we shall never forget the underdevelopment of Africa, the exploitation of our little children, the humiliation of our kings and queens and the princes and the princesses.
We shall never forget. We shall never forget. You know, one of the things, the worst things that happened here in Jamaica happened in the aftermath of David Cameron's visit to Jamaica, David Cameron's insult to the people of Jamaica. It happened courtesy of Franklin Johnston. Franklin Johnston is an advisor to the Minister of Education. Franklin Johnston, writing in the Observer, writing in the newspaper, talked about reparation, CARICOM, and Jamaican hospitality. Going to be reading it later on, because this is a man who is the advisor and one of the chief to the Minister of Education. And what he has done is to add insult to injury. And we say to the Minister of Education, Ronnie Thwaites, that after this article, this column by your chief, one of your chief advisors, that you must resign. The Minister of Education, Ronnie Thwaites, representing the enslavers and the children of the enslavers, you, sir, must resign. Now, the entire Parliament must step aside. But we are singling out this morning for special mention the Education Ministry, because you, sir, have the brains and the minds of our little children, of our daughters and our sons, our little babies in your hands. You must.
Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Freedom over me, and before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Oh, freedom. No more
let you know. No more weeping. No more weeping over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my own grave. Go home to my Lord and be free. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Freedom. Oh, freedom. Freedom over me. And before I be a slave.
The Jamaican government many years ago, 10 years ago, and we stood in this space and talked about it too, that this is what they were discussing 10 years ago under the UK prisoner transfer agreement. One of the things that we have to begin to do some research on, and it's very important that we arm ourselves with knowledge to be able to survive in what's happening to us now as a people. The UK prisoner transfer agreement, that discussion has been happening for close to 15 years. Definitely for 10 years. And if you recall, many years ago, around that time, we started talking about the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative. And we talked about the trips that were being made to Trinidad, especially. Remember that big security meeting in Trinidad? And the Derek Smith, who was then the Minister of National Security, he had gone to that meeting. We still haven't seen the memorandum of understanding that was signed then. And we've requested that through the Access to Information Act, which we still haven't received. But I'm still trying to get that, because it's very important. What's going to happen is that this one thing that's regarding the prison. So the UK Prime Minister came into Jamaica, and the Jamaican government has agreed to allow a prison complex to be built here in Jamaica. 25 million pounds is what the UK government is giving. That represents 40% of the cost to build that prison. The other 60% to build the prison will come from us, the taxpayers of Jamaica. We haven't signed on to this. We did not agree to it. But this is a conversation that is at least 10 years old, and now the Portia Simpson-led government has signed off on it. Now, there's a reason for that. Whatever the reason is, we can speculate, and I have my own ideas. I don't know if it is that the British government and with the US government, I don't know what they're holding over the heads of the Jamaican people, of the Jamaican government. But David Camron said it best in Parliament. He said, looked them in the eye and said to them that corruption can only be wiped out through transparency. And that was code for you better sign off on this, or else we just release what we have and all of those tapes and all of those documents, etc. So it is what it is. They applauded. Do you know why they applauded? All of them applauded so loudly. Because the House is a house of corruption. The Jamaican Parliament is a house of corruption. It is what it is. Right now, we're at a place in our development, in our growth, where we have, and in the struggle, where we are going to begin to have to call a spade a spade. And so they have sold us again. You know, there is a school of thought here in Jamaica that says that, and it is where black people are generally, that says that when we ask for reparation, we are pointed to Africans who sold Africans into slavery. Where there is corruption, where there is crime, there are always facilitators of this crime, and sometimes the facilitators come from the very same space and the very same people whom the crime is being perpetrated against. Remember that. It happens all the time. Don't think it didn't happen in the Holocaust. It did. It's just that the Jews don't stress that as much as black people tend to stress that. So it is what it is. It is what it is. Now, those very same people, and some of those very same people who were the facilitators of the enslavement of our ancestors. They are also here. I am my ancestors. They are also here. And they were the ones who sold us again. So that when Franklin Johnston mentioned this as the advisor to the Minister of Education, then it tells you that he himself is from that lineage, and he should claim it. All right, as one of those who sold us into slavery. So we're fighting the very same war on the ground. And yeah, it sounds like we're turning against each other, but it is what it is. We're going to have to fight each other to survive. So listen to this. Writing in the newspaper, the advisor to the Minister of Education says, I am not proud to be in a nation which failed its people and looked to visitors' wallets. CARICOM also seeks to cash in on the blood of our ancestors. Trillions in aid, taxes, bauxite, FDI, tourism, remittances spent, yet mendicant in body and mind. Our desperate thought leaders now play the race card to blackmail the Brits. Dave was greeted by a gracious Prime Minister and chastised by an impolite reparations rant. And he says, I am amused how incensed we get about people's money when there is no slave or slave owner alive except in Africa and Arabia. That is coming from the man who advises the Minister of Education. Now the minister, he's got to go. That is Mr. Franklin Johnston. He's got to go. But the minister himself has always known that these are the views held by someone who's advising him on curriculum development, on education in Jamaica, on how to go about with our young children. Now, this, for me, is a travesty. He goes on. He says, once a rabid communist who held our fate in nuclear hands visited, as did an African leader whose forefathers sold ours into slavery, we said not. Dave, born in 1966, is a scapegoat for acts in the 17th century, which ancestors made good in the 19th. Africans who sold us bring us no gifts, never preke upon we, but we get big welcome. He says racism is alive here. And he says, one sentence, one word, repent, with an exclamation sign. This is a man who's an advisor to the Minister of Education. No wonder the textbook that our children are reading are proliferated with Bible stories, mythical stories, stories of homosexuality, and nothing of their heritage, of who they are, of their identity, because there are some who are ensuring that we could talk till we drop, that they are ensuring that the curriculum remains Eurocentric, and that the curriculum remains one in which once our children have been through that they continue to be slaves and servants. The advisor to the Minister of Education, Mr. Franklin Johnston, writing in the paper, says reparation is a Ponzi scheme. Now, this is unless the paper is lying on him. He says reparations, and it's his article. He says reparation is the CARICOM's reparation brief is a Ponzi. Academia has standards, he says. Advocacy has none. So no one man can serve these two masters. Will he split his pants? He said, I gazed at the tarmac and saw Haile Selassie's visit. Selassie defended slavery at the League of Nations as Ethiopia's 4,000-year-old legacy. Yet some worship him. He says, we like our own truth. Dave, he says, meaning David Camron, hosts our diaspora, gives fight slavery in Africa, and a fatuous media worker can only ask, why is he here? What did he bring? And quote the offensive rant, he says, the gods must be crazy. And he goes on to say, reparation is funny. While we focus on David Cameron, who came in his white skin with his arrogant self as an enslaver, representing the enslaver, telling us exactly what he thinks about us. We know David Cameron. We see David Cameron. We know what he represents. We know what he stands for. But what about those in our midst, like Mr. Franklin Johnston? He must step aside as an advisor to the Minister of Education, and the Minister of Education must resign. This is not funny. This is blasphemous. And I'm using that word not lightly, understanding that the Minister of Education is a Roman Catholic deacon. What is this? What is this? What are they pulling off on us as they continue to enslave us? Mr. Franklin Johnson writing, he's identified in the article, at the bottom of the article, he's identified as an advisor to the Minister of Education. Now, he didn't write as a private person. He's identified as such. He says, next, CARICOM is desperate as their families were poor for 3 generations. Shame. He said, third, Dave did not choose his parents as David Cameron. Why take on the grandfather's folly? Would you? And he talked about a grade 6 Windward Road primary student. And he quoted the student as saying, and I quote, first thing, money is not all. I think Britain should not pay reparation to Jamaica because slavery was carried out by the ancestors and the people living in England now. And the people living in England now don't have anything to do with it. End of quote. And then he goes on to say, the mouths of babes rebut the fulminations of an aging MP seeking a legacy. And he goes on to quote the student against the student saying, the woman on the radio said he should make reparations, but I don't think he should because it's other Africans' fault why we came here. And then the advisor to the Minister of Education asks, don't you know? Should Dave, meaning David Cameron, suffer for his ancestors? Would you? Reparation chat, he says, thrives on poverty. This is the advisor to the Minister of Education, writing in the aftermath of David Cameron's visit to Jamaica. And we are spending our energy on David Cameron. I dismiss David Cameron. I crush David Cameron under my foot like an insect. He represents white supremacy. He represents white imperialism. He represents the enslaver. He is what he is, and a leopard is not about to change his skin. And I disagree, because now we have to take a stand even if we're sitting down. I disagree with the CARICOM Reparations Commission when they say that reparations or advocacy for reparations must be done in a non-confrontational manner. I agree with David Comesong in Barbados, who says that we have come to the time and the place and the space when we're going to have to be confrontational, when we're going to have to embarrass them in public, when we're going to have to stand up in Parliament and not talk in parables or write in metaphors, but to say to them exactly what it is we're demanding and why. And to say also to them, you represent white supremacy. You represent the enslaver, and we are not friends. So even while we accept the formal human trafficking, whatever that was, deal, somebody wrote in the newspapers that, I think it was on the social media, that the system is set up in such a way that our bright minds, once they finish university, they don't stay on because the system doesn't allow for them to develop and to grow, to create a space to build. So we're suffering from a brain drain as they move to build Britain and the United States and so on, and they do not come back. But think of this. Think of this. They go to the UK, and the UK send us back prisoners. And we'd like to know if the Jamaican government recognizes what it is about to do. Not in my name, not in my name, not in my name or my children's name or my ancestors' name, not in our name. It is not too late to say to the government of Jamaica, not on our watch. It is not too late. At the same time, we do not expect much from them, so we're going to have to fight our own battle. And when we get over the hurt, and I don't know how many are still hurting, because we're hurt and angry, and then hurt and angry again, and then hurt and angry because of the injustice that has been meted out to us these last few weeks. Princess Anne was in also, and there's a reason for that too. They converged on Jamaica last week like vultures. And David Camron, you could see the moment he stepped off the plane, you know, that he came with arrogance and disgust and contempt. He didn't even look at his own fellow man, the High Commissioner, who went to the steps to greet him. He just stepped right past him without even saying hello. And then he came down the stairs of the airplane, and he was mad. So he came into Jamaica mad. He knew what he came to do, and he knew that it was going to get done because of whatever he's got on the government. Bruce Golding said he rejected that idea in 2007 or thereabouts. But if we are to correlate that date around the time Bruce Golding rejected the idea, wouldn't it correspond to the time that the whole thing became such public knowledge regarding Tivoli Gardens? When they hold the cards and threaten you with those cards, you bow or you don't bow. And I suppose our Prime Minister and our government decided not to bow. Well, if you want to tell us the truth, we will speculate. And this is my speculation. They got you because they got something in you. But not only that, how can, you know, it is not funny, but there is a bit of humor in it. Because you saw those, both sides, they applauded loudly, you know, not the desks, when David Cameron spoke about corruption and how you wipe out corruption through transparency. And it made you really want to barf, because a more corrupt place you could not find. We're going to say to the Prime Minister of Jamaica, the Minister of Education, Mr. Franklin Johnston, and to all those who wined and dined and danced with David Cameron on the weekend, we're going to say to you that do the right thing. Do the right thing. We're ready for the revolutions and for the revolution, and the conditions are ripe, you know. We're just a week away from October 11. We had these very same conditions, October 11, 1865. The people of Jamaica wrote to the Queen of England asking for justice, asking for leniency, asking for what is theirs as far as human rights is concerned, asking to be treated as human beings. And she wrote back to them, telling them that they must move on, they must get over it already, and they must work harder. That happened. If you check the date, you know, we're in the 150 years ago. The very same things are playing themselves out again in Jamaica. So the people of Jamaica have written to the British Prime Minister an open letter, and to the ambassador on the ground, and to Princess Anne representing the royalty, the throne, to say what is right to ours is what is rightfully ours is what you owe us for unpaid labor, reparations. And David Cameron, they sent their emissary into Jamaica, and so he comes, as Governor Eyre did in 1865, October. So he comes and he says, get over it already. Get over it. Move on from here. The very, very same thing is playing itself out, and it is not by coincidence. We're going to be in St. Thomas October 11, marching from Stony Gut to Morant Bay to Paul Bogle Square. And we're going to be paying tribute to the martyrs of 1865 who, like us today, got to the point of not being able to take anymore. Enough was enough for them, and they did what they had to do. What is it that we have to do? And in the question, and in the words of Nina Simone, are you ready, black people? Are you ready? Are you ready, black people? Will you continue to be slaves? How are we going to treat this? How are we going to deal with this? How do we move on from this? Because if we did not know, now we know.
Over me, and before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Oh, freedom. I go to the movie
brother. And I say, brother, help me please. But he winds up knocking me back down.
And this is what they have done. This is what they have done. This is what those who we've elected, entrusted with the future of our children, this is what they have done. Knocked us down to our knees.
But now I think I'm able to carry on. It's been a long...
This time they're selling the entire nation, and they've been selling us little by little. This time they're selling the entire nation for 1,500 accommodation prison. The British Prime Minister David Camron says he will not atone for the sins of his country, Britain, in enslaving millions. But he's willing to build a prison in Jamaica to further enslave our brothers and sisters. Human trafficking in modern times. And we have signed on to it. So he's building an elite prison. Or so it would appear. And many have argued that what's going to be happening with this prison is that those who will have access to it would be drug lords and dons who can literally pay for it, because corruption is what it is. And the Prime Minister of Jamaica, who says she loves the poor and who calls herself a daughter of Nanny, of Queen Nanny, has presided over this travesty. Madam Prime Minister, you have failed. You have failed your ancestors. You have failed the people of Jamaica. You're presiding over, in modern times, the re-enslavement of an entire nation. What have we done? What have we done? What have we done? And how do we move from this? Each of us, I think, each of us must decide what our purpose is from here and walk in it. But before I be a slave, I'll be Chief Tachi. Chief Taki.
And never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another.
What is we are playing our only sin. Is we are playing our only sin. Yeah, mama. Our only sin is we are playing our only sin. Is we are playing our only sin. Is we are playing our only sin. Well, I'm old. What have we done? What have we done? Yellow mama. What have we done? Yellow. What have we done? Yellow mama.
David Camron has commissioned a memorial, millions of dollars, to the Jewish Holocaust in Britain, put together a committee, and has commissioned a memorial which is scheduled to be completed next year. And he tells us to get over it.
Never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another.
Speak truth to the people. To identify the enemy is to free the mind. Free the mind of the people. Speak to the mind of the people. Speak truth.
In the studio, Kwame Pianke has joined me. No stranger to the Running African family, no stranger to the program, but for the first time, live in studio, usually on the phone lines, we're very happy to have our brother Kwame Pianke with us. Kwame, good morning, greetings.
Hotep, everyone.
You know, you're here on a very important morning because as you've been here all morning, so you've heard, and I know you've been in Jamaica for a few days and probably testing the temperature of a nation regarding the call for reparations, the response to that call by the British Prime Minister, Princess Anne, who came in, and of course the government of Jamaica. First of all, your initial your perspective on what you see and feel unfolding.
What I find funny is that Britain doesn't have money to feed its own people. And suddenly they want to shower money on the Caribbean for so-called infrastructure projects. So it seems to me that they are trying to provide a counterbalance to the Chinese influence within the Caribbean. Part of their austerity measures that they're taking in Britain is that they have found that children of Caribbean nationals who commit crimes are too expensive for them to take care of. So they want to dump off this expense on their colonies, which again, as you said, Jamaica is a colony. What I find so amazing is we are dealing with a transitionary period of the world where the West is losing power and the East is rising. And if you truly had an independent, visionary government, they can use this as leverage to get deals that truly lead to our self-determination. But it seems like whenever these, particularly Western leaders visit, you just see this absolute acquiescence, slave-like acquiescence to their responses. And you're wondering, one has to wonder why there's no demands. You know, what do they have on the leadership within this country where demands aren't being made? Reparations is one of the number one demands that they need to proffer when the leadership comes here, when like someone like a David Camron comes here. But again, I find it, what he did was not a gift. It was, in a way, a curse, because the expense of maintaining the prison, the expense of feeding the prisoners at a taxpayer's behalf. So again, you're paying money to Britain, whether you believe it or not, and this is re-enslavement of the people. Furthermore, I don't see any effort among the leadership here to gain leverage to make sure that we have a leg to stand on in terms of reparations. The reason the Jews get reparations is because they have a disproportionate financial control of the financial markets, a disproportionate representation in the media markets, so they can leverage financial pressure on places like Britain, like places like the United States, like Germany. And I think a discussion needs to be had between the CARICOM and Africa. What can we do as a people to build up our leverage, so if our demands aren't met, there is some sort of punishment, for lack of a better term, in order so we can see what we need to see.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think of and I know you were here, so you heard the response, which you haven't read, but the response in the newspapers by the advisor to the Minister of Education regarding the call and the claim, the reparations claim from CARICOM and from the National Commission of Reparations for reparations here in Jamaica.
It's amazing this guy's advising an education ministry when there's so much in that is historically wrong. For instance, if you look at Camron's own background, his family personally benefited from the slave trade, and particularly here in Jamaica. Would he be able to go to the private schools that he went to in Britain? Would he be able to rub shoulders with with various peers or lords, so to speak, in Britain, had his family not had that power? Because you just don't get to be prime minister as some poor boy in Britain coming up. So the platform he stands on is based on the money that his family earned off of our ancestors, and that money was earned interest several times over. And the other thing Franklin Johnson avoids is that at the end of slavery, even though people like Cameron's families made a lot of money, that his family was furthermore compensated for the loss of the free labor that they had, while we, on the other hand, were not compensated. And I think that compensation will translates into $100 billions today. Mm-hmm. So it's so easy for him to dismiss. He talks about how, and there's always this argument how Africans enslaved each other, but again, a lot of that was manipulated because you had a bunch of small principalities that were pitted against each other.
You see, and that is why, for me, you see, this to me is critical, because the nuances and the analysis that is needed, and the fact that we need to revisit that history and do that through the school curriculum, that this is critical. It is so important for this to be done, that if an advisor to the Minister of Education thinks this way, and he's one of the top advisors, if he's thinking this way, then what can we expect in the curriculum? What can we expect our teachers or our children to learn, and our teachers to teach? For me, it's egregious. He needs to resign immediately. I think as a nation we should be pressuring the minister to ensure that this man, because he's paid with our monies, remember, he's paid as an advisor with taxpayer money, and I'm thinking there's something so morally wrong with all that he has said in terms of where we need to go as a nation, re-education, that somebody must stand up and say no. But we're not getting that. We have more people agreeing with him than anything.
And to me, the first opportunity for him to have been a true educator would be to correct that young sixth form student who, to me, grade 6 student, to me, who made such a wrong assessment as to how we got here with the slave trade.
He quotes her and gives her prominence in the newspaper, and she's a child, and really, as an advisor, it really is his duty now to, yes, correct on the ground, and then later on to call the teachers together, call those who are developing the curriculum together to say, there is a gap in the curriculum.
Yes, there's a big gap, and to me, one of the first books that people should read regarding the slave trade is a book called Fighting the Slave Trade by Sylviane Diouf. And in there's a very important article by an economist out of Rochester, University of Rochester, I believe, named Joseph Ainekori, who is Nigerian. And he set up basically the scenario is in Europe you had slavery, but slavery typically ended when empires formed because the leadership in those areas did not want their people rebelling against them. Well, the European nations purposely prevented empire formation in West Africa to maintain the slave trade. So you could pit various municipalities against each other, principalities against each other, in order to prevent this natural process. And one of the evidence he uses, for instance, is for when the Yoruba were empire, you did not see many Yoruba coming over to this side of the land as enslaved people. When the empire dissolved, because people were then pitted against each other, you saw a lot of Yoruba people who were enslaved. And furthermore, European intervention prevented African manufacturing. Kumasi, according to this article, was set up initially as a manufacturing center. But then when the pressures on what was then called the Gold Coast got so great, unfortunately, a lot of the Ashanti felt they were forced to go into that awful trade to protect themselves. So again, these books put the nuances in there. It doesn't, the way it's shaped, because Europeans are always bringing up, we sold each other into slavery, but they never teach the circumstances that it went under. It became a crabs in a barrel mentality because you were faced by a force who had more sophisticated arms than Africans did. And if you look at the initial outset of the slave trade, one of the people quoted in John Henrik Clark's book, Notes for African Revolution, and I'm not quoting the book title correctly, is Kwame Pianke, where he asked the Portuguese to leave because of their increasingly arrogant attitude. And this was in the 1500s, and he wasn't the first and only leader. We talk about Queen Nzinga. So a lot of the African leaders asked the Europeans to leave because they saw what was going on. And if you almost go down the road, almost all of them were either exiled or assassinated and replaced with compliant leadership afterwards.
And the extent to which our education system should be respecting the history, and not just respecting it, but ensuring that as part of a character building, as part of forming our proper identities, there's so much, as you said, in Jamaica about where we're going and how we should get there and what we're not doing and so on. But there's always this disconnect from identity. Who are we? So if we don't know who we are, first of all, I don't know how it is that we're going to know where we're going. But the education ministry, I think, has an obligation to revisit history from time to time as more information becomes available, and also to rewrite to write the truth, because what we have is a Eurocentric miseducation. So that how do we now look through our own lenses with so much research coming out of the universities and you have quoted some of them all across the world regarding the truth regarding African history. I played a documentary last week, a BBC documentary, in which it referenced the University College of London's research regarding the British forgotten slave owners, and in that documentary we heard so much about Edward Long. Edward Long is seen as a historian, even today, one of the foremost historians on West Indian and African history, and he wrote a lot here about Jamaica. I have programs and I have guests coming even today who still quote Edward Long, but if you read Long, you realize that he was one of those, a chief architect, perpetuating the myth and the lie about the African brute and the inferiorness and the inferiority of the African. So that it is the Ministry of Education has that obligation to revisit Long, to revisit the miseducation, and to ensure that the history is properly written. Now, if it is that one of the main advisors to the minister thinks that the history written as it is what is and what should be, what can we expect?
Yeah, and it also, to me, shows the need, as long as the ministry acts in this way, for parents to get together and start forming Saturday schools. to educate their own children, to also debrief their own children from the miseducation that happened earlier in the week. So it's fine to advocate that the government should do certain things, but while that process is in place, people have to start governing themselves and governing their own educational curriculum themselves.
And what is the role? What's the responsibility of the state? How do we hold them responsible? Because you do what you do. I teach my child what I teach my child at home, but then she goes to school and she's told she's not African. So she identifies as African in the class because the textbook is asking who you are, and she's identified as African, but she's told she's not African. So what is the role of a state to ensure that a teacher don't look at a little black child coming to school and say, you're not African?
Well, the state should be training the teachers. The state should assess the character of the teachers. The teachers should be repeatedly assessed to see if they're teaching things properly in the classroom or they can't keep their jobs. This also goes to the principals and people who form the curriculums.
It is critical to me. And once again, I think that the mindset, the paradigm that the Ministry of Education is currently operating in is not sustainable. And we should, with all due respect, and I don't even know if we should even be saying all due respect at this stage, but we should just demand that we should look at, can somebody divorce themselves from who they are when you're teaching, when you're developing the curriculum, when you're running an education ministry? On its way, it is a Roman Catholic deacon.
And a Rhodes Scholar.
And a Rhodes Scholar.
Mm-hmm.
He represents that. And his advisor is obviously, what I can't say racist, a self-hater.
Correct.
So how do you have these people developing curriculum for our children?
But maybe they're put in that position for a reason.
Well, that's the point. And we have to wake up. I want you to listen to this because I want you to comment on your thoughts on this. So let me just play this and then you comment.
While there is much indeed to celebrate about our past, it would be wrong to do so while ignoring the most painful aspects of it. A period which should never be forgotten and from which history has drawn the bitterest of lessons. Slavery was and is abhorrent in all its forms. It has no place. It has no place whatsoever in any civilized society, and Britain is proud to have eventually led the way in its abolition. That the Caribbean has emerged from the long dark shadow that it cast is testament to the resilience and spirit of its people. I acknowledge that these wounds run very deep indeed, but I do hope that as friends who have gone through so much together since those darkest of times, we can move on from this painful legacy and continue to build for the future.
Your thoughts on that?
That Britain led the way with abolition. Again, if Richard Hart's book, The Slaves Who Abolished Slavery, were part of curriculum, people would have called Camron out on that. The fact is, a lot of people, even in the Caribbean, and I remember that History of the Jamaican People book, where they gave so much credit to Wilberforce for abolition, but if you read his true history, he was really trying to delay the end of slavery or delay emancipation. So Jamaicans here reset the timetable and forced the UK to reset the timetable to end slavery. Furthermore, I kept on hearing Cameron's word partnership. Partnership implies reciprocity, which is one of the 7 tenets of Mayat. When you have enslaved people, there's no partnership. That's abuse. And for even the Prime Minister to talk about this partnership and how we built Britain. Yes, she's correct. We did build Britain, but it wasn't done under any voluntary circumstances.
And then he talks about moving on. I hope that as friends, I think we should really, reduce and deconstruct his entire speech line by line. I'd planned to do that this morning, but I just had a change of heart when I came in. But then he talked about moving on. Hope we can move on from this. And within the context of him just recently commissioning a multi-million-dollar memorial to the Jewish Holocaust in Britain, and saying, as he did so, that we must remember, we must never forget this, and we must not allow this to happen again.
Yeah, I think Camron should move on from his wealth he got from his ancestors. That's the first place if he wanted to move on. And, you know, give it back to us. And again, with the Jewish Holocaust Memorial in Britain, it's back to economic leverage. The Jews have, again, a disproportionate amount of influence in the city of London. So how do we as a people gain that sort of economic leverage to force the hands of those who enslaved us in the past? And so that is, to me, that's one of the primary goals the reparation movement needs to take, or steps they need to take to figure out how can we gain economic leverage. Because at this point, a lot of times the way we're approaching things, it's almost from a subservient perspective. We can sit down and threaten legal cases, which, you know, legal cases are fine, but if we don't have any teeth behind our demands, then they can continue to be ignored. And I see, you know, in the reparations movements in the States, you know, the Congressional Black Caucus under John Conyers always organizes these conferences, and nothing comes of them, because there are no economic demands behind it. And even look in the States, the Japanese received reparations for their internship. Why is that? Because you had the big Japanese corporate giants who have, who some industrialists in the States are dependent on.
You know, David Cameron said, to go back to the Jewish memorial, and he was speaking when he made the announcement that the memorial was going to be commissioned. He said, survivors, talking about Jewish survivors have played a vital role in keeping the memory of the Holocaust alive, but we will not always have these remarkable individuals with us. We face a real danger that as the events of a Holocaust become ever more distant, they feel increasingly remote to current and future generations. So that, he says, this cross-party national commission representing our whole society will investigate what more needs to be done to ensure Britain has a permanent and fitting memorial and the educational resources needed for generations to come. Put that in the context of what he said to us here, to the parliament, not to me, to the parliament here in Jamaica.
In the context here, he says, you don't matter and I don't fear you. In the context with the Jews in Britain, you matter and I fear you. And I can lose what semblance of power I have if I don't acquiesce to your demands. So again, it comes back to us, what are we doing to show our strength? So the U.S. or the U.K. or France can acquiesce to our demands for reparations. And I also think it's significant that he visited on the 150th anniversary of the Morant Bay Rebellion.
Yes.
Because if you look, what was this, about 10 years ago, when Aristide was removed from Haiti on the 200th anniversary of Haitian Revolution, or the culmination of the Haitian Revolution. So it's very important for Europeans to celebrate either their victories over us or humiliate us when we celebrate our victories. So it was very purposeful that this visit came at this time. And what I find amazing that is the leadership here has no sense of historical significance, because history is a continuum, as John Henrik Clarke says. The historical significance as a timing to these visits. They don't question why he demanded to come at this time.
Morlemu Marcus Mosiah Garvey, and we quoted him earlier, says, always try to look beyond the present by calling upon your past experience when you're looking at the future. As a daughter of Nanny, and sometimes they say they're children of Marcus Garvey, and that we hear the Prime Minister say that when she's cussing for, and because somebody might have said something that she doesn't agree with. But if you really are a child of Marcus Garvey, this is what you really should have said to David Cameron when he said, let us move on and let us look to the future. We are all ready to look to the future, but in the way that Marcus Garvey taught us to, always to look beyond the present, calling upon our past experiences when we're looking toward the future. We'll be right back. I want to read to you the press release from the Pan-African Network signed by David Comesong. David Comesong, a long-time reparations advocate, a very good friend to this program. When we started talking about reparations in the early 1990s, David Comesong, Barbara Blake Hanna were two of the chief resource persons. And he has written, after all of this, sent out a press release under the heading, Putting David Cameron in His Place. And we want to read that. So he says the members of the Caribbean Pan-African Network, a pan-Caribbean organization with chapters and members in some Eastern Caribbean territories, would like to inform United Kingdom Prime Minister David Cameron that we are not interested in his £300 million so-called aid package! Exclamation sign.
Forever, yes, erase your fantasy, yeah.
He says, as far as we are aware, the Caribbean people have not asked Mr. Cameron or his UK government for aid or for any form of charity. Indeed, proud and right-thinking Caribbean people are not interested in receiving aid from the likes of Mr. Cameron and his UK government. David Comesong goes on to say what we're interested in and what we have asked for and demanded is reparations.
Naked fools, you think you are cool to deny me for simplicity. Yes, you are gone.
He goes on to say all we want from Mr. Cameron and his UK government is what we are entitled to as a matter of international law and morality, and that is reparations in the form of capital payments and developmental projects to compensate for the tremendous damage inflicted on the sons and daughters of Africa across multiple generations as a result of the centuries-long crime of European orchestrated slavery, slave trade, and associated acts of genocide and crimes against humanity. Our organization, he says, wishes also to inform Mr. Cameron that he does not possess the locus standi nor the moral authority to tell us that we must move on from the deep wounds of slavery. Indeed, how does one move on from a deep wound that has not been repaired or healed? Mr. Cameron, he says, is a descendant of a criminal who in the early 19th century participated in the enslavement and criminal exploitation of the black people of the Caribbean, and who, after appropriating the material benefits of the unpaid labor that he brutally squeezed out of our black ancestors, went on to pocket the present-day equivalent of £4.5 million in so-called compensation for the loss of what he considered to be his human property. How, David Comesong asked, against the background of this history, does Mr. Cameron aggregate himself to the right to lecture us about how we must respond to or deal with our pain and injury?
You think you are cool to deny me for simplicity.
And David Comesong goes on to say, can it be that Prime Minister Cameron's whole attitude towards us is one steeped in condescension and contempt? Indeed, what else could it be than contempt when the governments and people of the Caribbean ask for the repair and healing of grievous wounds, and Mr. Cameron responds by offering to build a prison in Jamaica to incarcerate black Jamaicans who he no longer wishes to accommodate in the UK? Some proud and clear-sighted citizen of the Caribbean needs to tell Mr. Cameron where he can take his prison and shove it. Now, I'm feeling David Comesong. I'm feeling him. He says, we reiterate that the Caribbean people are not interested in either the physical prison that Mr. Cameron is proposing to build in Jamaica or in the other metaphorical and psychological prisons that he proposes to inflict on the dignity and spirit of our people with his rejection of repatriations and his substitute so-called aid package.
The rich man wages it, yes it
Continuing the press release from David Cameron, David Comisong, he says, "You see, we the people of the Caribbean are gradually coming to an understanding that the first and most basic principle of the reparations movement is that the very demand for reparations constitute in itself an indispensable validation by us of our own precious humanity. We have come to perceive that if we fail to demand that the present-day representatives and beneficiaries of those persons, institutions, and nations that committed the most horrible crimes imaginable against our ancestors be held accountable and made to pay restitution, we would be implicitly sending a message to ourselves and to the world at large that we do not consider our ancestors or ourselves to be sacred beings imbued with inalienable rights and deserving of respect and justice." And so he says a mere act of demanding reparation is important and is a critical component of the process that we must engage in as individuals and as a collective of repairing ourselves. He says Mr. Camron and all those who think like him should therefore rest assured that our reparations demand will not go away. It will not go away. It cannot go away because it is a demand that is founded in law and morality. At the end of the day, he says it does not matter what Mr. Cameron or any other Prime Minister of Britain thinks about reparations. All that is important is that as a matter of law and morality, reparations are due to the blacks or African-descended people and nations of the world and must ultimately be paid.
But fools die for want of wisdom. The rich man wages
And he continues, Mr. Cameron's British government has already embarrassed and humiliated itself on this issue of reparations. In the year 2001, the UK government attended the United Nations World Conference Against Racism and displayed their moral bankruptcy for the whole world to see when they publicly declared that black or African people could not be entitled to reparations because back in the 19th and 18th centuries, it was legal to kidnap, enslave, and brutalize black or African people. So he says, if Mr. Cameron and other representatives of the UK government wish to continue with this morally bankrupt charade of maintaining the 19th and 18th century black or African people were not really human beings, but were soulless chattels that could be lawfully kidnapped, raped, enslaved, and worked to death, let them continue doing so. Indeed, let the foolish emperor continue displaying his nakedness. We, on the other hand, he said, must know that what we need to do now. By now, it should have become clear to Sir Hilary Beckles, Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves, Prime Minister Freundel Stewart, and all the other political leaders of the Caribbean that contrary to their hitherto expressed expectations, it may well turn out that the reparations issue will not be resolved in a non-confrontational, mutually respectful manner. I agree. He says our political leaders may well have to consider the very real possibility that people like David Cameron and the government that he represents may have to be confronted and publicly embarrassed. I agree. What I do know for sure is that we in CPAN are already convinced that the Caribbean's campaign for reparations will have to be designed, on the one hand, to bring on board with us all of our natural allies in Africa and the diaspora, Latin America and Asia, and to enlist the tremendous weight of a public opinion on our side. And, on the other hand, to isolate and publicly hold up to international embarrassment and ridicule all those who perversely and unreasonably seek to deny and resist the manifest justice and righteousness of our claims for reparations. And then he says, we therefore declare for all and sundry to hear, let the campaign now begin in earnest. For in the words of Barbados' premier Calypsonian, the mighty Gabby, rise up you African children. Victory is certain. Victory is more than certain. This is from David Comesong, my very good friend and chairman of a Caribbean Pan-African network. I agree with him. This is a tone that we'll have to take. What's your take on this, Brother Kwame?
You know, I'm going to go back. I'm going to veer this off just a little bit. And I'm going to put this on Marcus Garvey as well. When you look at the reparations movement, the beginning of the reparations movement began with a lady named Callie House, whose biography was done by Mary Frances Berry in a book called My Face is Black But True. Well, her organization, I forget the name of the organization now, when she was put in prison under mail fraud, does that sound familiar? Her organization was rolled into the UNIA. And from there, the reparations movement grew with the UNIA. What Garvey decided to do, in addition to demanding reparations, he was, by establishing a beachhead in Africa and Liberia, where he was going to pay off all Liberia's debts, he was trying to create a superpower big enough where we would have the leverage to have the reparations. And I think, again, CPAN's move now to unite with Africa to demand reparations is a very wise move, because Africa can demand they have just as much of a strong foot to demand reparations as those of us who are dispersed.
And it's thrown in Latin America, Asia, which is really how we need to go. You know, wherever we are, and wherever there is a common struggle.
Yes, definitely. And remember, slavery ended not just because of our efforts here in the Caribbean, in the States, and Latin America. Africans fought the slave trade from the beginning, and even at the height of it, the fact that they would hide in inaccessible areas made it more expensive for Europeans to get them. So it was a pan-African movement that ended the slave trade, and we have to continue that movement. And if you look back in the day, during the 1800s or 19th century, there was a lot of communication between advocates in the Caribbean, the States, and Latin America, and they had no internet, they had no phone, they had no telegraph. So why can't we, with all the technology we have today, we should be able to go beyond what our ancestors even did during that time period.
Rise up, African people.
Speak truth to the people. To identify the enemy is to free the mind. Free the mind of the people. Speak to the mind of the people. Speak truth.
We refuse to be what you wanted us to be. We are what we are. That's the way it's going to be. If you don't know, you can't educate us or no equal opportunity. Talking about my freedom, people freedom and liberty. Yeah, we've been shouting on the wine press much too long. Rebel, rebel. Yes, we've been trying on the wine press much too long. Rebel, rebel.
How many more times will they have to insult us before we rebel? How many times do they have to continue to treat us with contempt and disgust? Like chewing gum under their shoes, bothersome. How many more times will they have to do that? How many times will they have to tell us to get lost before we rebel? We refuse to be what they want us to be. We learned something this past week, these past few days here in Jamaica. We learned, for those who knew, kudos to you. For those who are just waking up to this over these last few weeks, that we've got a bunch of lackeys representing us in Parliament. And we talk a lot about David Cameron because we have to put things in perspective, but I want to reiterate and underscore that I do not give two hoots about David Cameron or about the British government. Not really. What I am concerned about is what are we going to do? What are we going to do and how are we going to do it? That's my main concern. Even while we recapture our heritage and our identity. Malcolm X, our brother elder of blessed memory, tells us if we are ever to liberate ourselves from the bonds of white supremacy, then we must recapture our heritage. We must recapture our identity. We must launch a cultural revolution to unbrainwash an entire people. It's an indispensable weapon. My special guest on the program this morning, Pan-Africanist, also an engineer. We didn't say that, did we? Our brother Kwame Pianke is in the studio with us. Kwame, you know, we're getting some responses on the social media from a comment you made about how Mwalimu Marcus Messiah Garvey and the UNIA were able to do it without the technology to launch so many cultural projects and literally spearhead a cultural revolution in terms of in the form of Malcolm X. And then to say, but how did they do that without the technology that we have today? And yet we seem to be failing in that regard.
Heart and spirit. And plus they had folk wisdom. Both in the States and here in Jamaica, we weren't so much far removed from our Africanness during that time period. Our people like Garvey heard stories from his grandparents. People like Callie House probably heard stories from her parents, her grandparents about what it was like. And so therefore, it gave them that sort of confidence. And number two, under those atmospheres, you had small institutions, and not even so small. You look at the AME Church in the United States, and they had their own economic projects. John Henry Clark talked about how black Christianity in the 19th century was more Ethiopianism, and then somehow in the late 19th century became Zionism. Mm-hmm. So, again, we lost the Ethiopianism part, but the people like the Garveys and the Callie Houses and the Martin Delaney's and the John Edward Bruces and the Robert Loves took that Ethiopianism to heart, and it drove their vision. And so therefore, with that passion and vision, you can accomplish anything. They were focused on the outcome. They weren't focused on the problem necessarily, and they had the belief that they had the solution to our problems.
You know, one of the things that happened in Parliament, which I've found very, very difficult to talk about because the person who spoke is a very good friend and as a schoolmate in Parliament, and he was a lackey, a house slave, and not just an ordinary house slave, but one who, you know, would be responsible for thinking that he's massa, one who would be responsible for selling out. And because we have to speak truth to power, and because even when we have relationships, long-standing relationships and friendships, but we see that our brothers and our sisters are selling us out, there's a time when we have to stand in our spaces and in our purpose and say who we are. And I think we're at that point now in Jamaica where we're just going to have to say who we are and stand in it. And I find it very, very painful, and I've not spoken about it much, but the Speaker of the Senate, Floyd Morris, friend to the program and a very good personal friend, schoolmate, he stood up in the Senate, and when he was through in the Senate, you know, I do think that I have a bit of what he said. Oh, I think we played it this morning. When he was through in the Senate, I was ashamed to know him. And we're going to call it as it is. Floyd, I cannot, you're the president of a Senate. You have come this far as an African, and this is how you see yourself. This is how you define yourself, that you stand up and laud and praise. And literally, there are terms that we cannot use on air for what you did in Parliament in welcoming David Camron. And if we could just find that, okay. Right, give me this. Oh yeah, Floyd Morris. So let's go to him, because this is just a part of what he said in Parliament, which to me is a disgrace. It's a shame. Listen, talking now to David Camron. Just listen to this.
You can now boast membership in a select group of illustrious persons who have graced our highest decision-making institution. You have joined the likes of Her Majesty the Queen, Sir Winston Churchill, Emperor Haile Selassie, and Nelson Mandela.
That was Floyd Morris, the President of the Senate. Nelson Mandela, the Emperor Haile Selassie, here's a man who has just insulted you, insulted the parliament. Was he not listening? Did he not hear? We know he's visually impaired, but we know he's hearing okay. So did he not hear what David Camron just said? Because he was the last person to speak. And this is how he thanked him, by putting him together with the Emperor Haile Selassie and with Nelson Mandela.
It appears to me historical amnesia could be immediate because you forgot what the speech said.
Yeah, oh great. It's good. That's really good for you.
But I'm going to take what he said praising Winston Churchill and Queen Elizabeth. Winston Churchill started off, or at least he came to prominence in British politics as the African commissioner. And I think South Africa was one of his areas of which he was commissioner in British politics. And if you look at Winston Churchill's brutal history, as many, even though many Jamaicans are named after him, he virulently opposed the UNIA's efforts in Africa. And I think he was the main one who crafted the strategy of confiscating the Negro world when it went over there. Queen Elizabeth, I mean, their family's history, I mean, what more do we have to say? I mean, she's considered one of the richest women in the world, or if not the richest woman in the world. And where does all that wealth come from? Because, frankly, they never worked for it. That wealth comes from the slave trade. And if you look at the strategic importance of Jamaica, you know, I've read several books on the Maroons, although my favorite one is Mavis Campbell's books. Mm-hmm. And there is a small part in there where they said had not Cujo capitulated, the British were very close to giving up Jamaica.
Yes.
And the fact that Cujo capitulated and then forced the hand of Nanny's Maroons to sign the treaty, it allowed Jamaica to become Britain's richest colony, and it allowed Britain to become an empire. Mm-hmm. So it's because of Jamaica the sun never set on the British Empire. And it's because of Jamaica Queen Elizabeth is the richest woman in the world. And so, again, for Floyd to praise these two people whose bellies were made full by our ancestors' efforts is very offensive to me.
It is offensive. It is contemptuous and offensive. And this is why the Parliament and the Senate and the House and all those who are gathered there, they've got to, I demand and we challenge you to look at yourselves and to face yourselves in the mirrors. But more than that, to collectively, I don't know how it is going to work, but we have before no confidence, we have lost all confidence totally. Was there not a bomb in Gilead? Was there not one who could stand up and fight back and shout back? Andrew Holness tried to do that. And we must give him kudos where kudos due, because he did stand up in Parliament and say, you know, you should pay the wrongs. And he did talk about the schools. You know, it's better for growth and development. It's better to build schools than to build prisons. And that, I think, was commendable of him. They have also said, and this has become a partisan issue now because, you know, they're politicizing it and it really don't make no sense. But they've also said that the JLP, that if they should win the next election on the prison deal, they would pull back, that they would not go forward with the prison deal. They would literally retract that. How they're going to do that, I am not quite sure. Is it possible for them to do that in terms of how far they reach? Is this thing ratified yet in Parliament? I don't even know how far they reach with this thing. But this is what the JLP is saying. If they should become the next government, then they are going to repeal that decision. good or bad?
That's good, and hopefully they're sincere about it. But I want to also step back again to the cultural significance of what is being said, because I know Portia likes to quote herself as a daughter of Nanny.
Yes, and Marcus Garvey, by the way,
which I find kind of interesting. But if you look at the way the St. Mary / Portland Maroons governed themselves, it was a very, I don't like to use a Greek word, democracy, but for lack of a better word, democratic form of governments. The leaders were held accountable in that group. If you made missteps as leader, there was a recall mechanism. You compare that to the Cujo way, and I know it's Quadro, but for his instance, I want to say Cujo.
Yeah, they say Cujo, but it's the same thing. Yeah, Cujo.
But he was autocratic. He got rid of those who disagreed with him, and he threatened those on behalf of his masters, which were the British. And
I just interrupt you. A good book to read to find out the extent of that also is Thistlewood in Jamaica, because Thistlewood wrote those diaries, and he just casually mentions that Cujo is here, and he has returned 2 slaves or 3 slaves, or he's come back with the runaways, and we're going to have a cup of tea, that kind of a thing. So we saw that playing out right there. I interrupted though, go ahead.
Yes, and even so, I mean, and granted, this is British records, but they said they even had to hold him back from his bloodthirstiness of killing slaves because they wanted the enslaved Africans returned to their plantations. So to me, there's been a spiritual battle in Jamaica. Are we going to accept the nanny model of governance? Are we going to accept the Quadro model of governance? And it seems like in recent years, at least since the 70s, that the Quadro model of governance reigns supreme here.
Right, Quadro. And I like to throw in another one, Taki. I'm just throwing right there from St. Mary, because and you're right. I do agree with you that it's the Quadro model of governance that we see playing out, and that is why it's been so easy for those who identify themselves even as daughters of Nanny and daughters of Marcus Garvey to really do something else, to act in another way, act contrary to all of that, because basically it is just speech. Remember now, we're saying to the Prime Minister, I am saying to the Prime Minister this morning, you're not who you say you are. You're not what you say you are. You're not what you think you are. You are what you do, and what you have done is unforgivable. Uhuru, freedom, uhuru, 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 freedom songs.
Freedom.
October 11, 1865. Paul Bogle and hundreds of warriors marched from Stony God to Morant Bay in search of justice and in defense of their human rights.
And before I'll be a slave.
The massacre that followed saw over 1,000 black Jamaicans brutally murdered by the vicious British governor on the island.
And be free.
Sunday, October 11, 2015. 150 years later, we follow the trail of blood and tears in tribute to the martyrs of the 1865 Morant Bay War.
Never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another.
Join us in St. Thomas, Sunday, October 11, 2015, from 6 a.m. on the march from Stony God to Morant Bay, and then in Paul Bogle Square for a somber tribute to the black soldier warriors of the Morant Bay War. Brought to you courtesy of the National Commission on Reparations, Reparatory Justice for the Martyrs of the Morant Bay War. And we were telling you about the St. Hilda's High School student who was named head girl. She was badged, and then it turned out that the school found out that her religion was that of Jehovah's Witness, and so that was conflicting with the Anglican religion, and so she has been debadged. We're going to hear from Shamara Preston, our trainee broadcast assistant. She's been working the story behind the scenes, and we're going to be carrying that. And then in a little while, I think maybe after news, hopefully, we'll hear from her, the young lady's mother. So here we go.
Res severa verum gaudium. Hard work brings true joy. The motto of the St. Hilda's Diocesan High School in Brownstown, St. Anne. Founded by Khan James Philip Hall in 1906, the Diocesan of Jamaica and the Cayman Islands Institution is at the forefront of a denomination discrimination controversy. After obtaining a 97.5 average and placing 7th in Jamaica's All-Island Secondary School Rankings 2015, the all-female institution appointed Jade Basco, a Jehovah's Witness, as the head girl for the academic year 2015 to 2016. The student was introduced to the school and community population along with the deputy head girl and prefects, which is the school's academic executive body. The selection was undertaken by Principal Mrs. Heather Reed Johnson and teachers at the institution. Once the student meets all the school's required criteria. Jade was later informed by the principal that the post would be taken from her after being appointed less than 2 weeks ago. This will be due to her denomination association. Bishop at the institution, Robert Thompson, says it was after the appointment the school discovered the young lady was a Jehovah's Witness. Therefore, her appointment had to be withdrawn. The bishop says while she is qualified for the position, her faith is contradicting to the beliefs of the Anglican Church, hence her appointment would be compromising.
A head girl was appointed, and somehow the school discovered after the girl has been appointed and announced to the community they had to withdraw that appointment. The reason being that the St. Hilda's High School is an Anglican school. Two things involved here. The faith of the appointee, which the school had to withdraw. The young miss is bright, competent, so there's absolutely no question about that. And I would imagine well behaved, because she would not have been identified by the school as the head girl. However, because of her faith, and she is a practicing person belonging to that faith, it's a faith that contradicts everything about the Anglican Church.
The situation has created a tense atmosphere at the institution. A student of the school reportedly told her parents she is bothered by the situation. The student also made mention that Jade was questioning the state of affairs and referred to herself as being bad-lucked.
My daughter came home very distressed, saying that this head girl who had been appointed, the principal had called her, told her they were going to take away the head girlship from her because she is a Jehovah's Witness. My daughter wondered how these things could happen, and then to tell her a after that they're going to name a new head girl. This is destructive to a young person. It's devastating. She girl is crying and saying how she does bad luck. It's like she cursed, like something wrong with her. That sort of reasoning.
Meanwhile, Bishop Thompson states that the situation was explained to the student and her parents, and the school found itself with a conflict of interest. He confirmed that the Ministry of Education partners with church schools to bring Christian values to the education process.
We have these church schools. There are 200 Anglican schools, 11 of which are secondary schools. There is a reason why the Ministry of Education continues to partner with churches in delivering the educational product. So there's a level of mutual understanding between the school and the ministry that the Christian faith will be brought in at some point. The school is not proselytizing or compelling anyone to become Anglicans. In fact, there are Muslims and Hindus and all these people who belong there, and they don't even ask them to participate in any kind of religious activities. But if you have a head girl who cannot at least represent the school, and moments when the school is in fact demonstrating something of the ethos that belongs to the school's history and development. So that really was a conflict that the school found itself in, and that was explained, as I understand it, to the head girl and to her family.
Baron Buckley, Public Relations Officer in the Ministry of Education, says he is not aware of the matter and will investigate. He further stated that discrimination is illegal in Jamaica and will not be supported by the Ministry of Education. However, schools and school boards have the general authority to administer punishment based on their discretion.
No, of course, discrimination is legal in Jamaica based on race, sex, based on the Constitution, the Charter of Rights. So there's no way the ministry could go ahead and support those things. Those would be unconstitutional. So I can't speak to the particular issue, I'm not aware of it. Anywhere at all that would occur in the ministry, in the honor education sector, we would clearly be against it because it's unconstitutional. We don't discriminate on any of those bases you mentioned a while ago. But we give school boards the general authority to set up the governance issues in schools, and a good 40% of our schools roughly are owned, controlled by schools, so they have a say in the chairmanship of the board. My general thing that the ministry does not support any form of discrimination on the ground that you mentioned. And I'm going to now check how it is.
Chairman of the school board, Bishop Leon Goulding, says no discrimination is involved and an investigation would not have been done prior to the student's appointment. This selection, however, would be left to the discretion of the principal. While the bishop is aware that a new person will be appointed to the post, he is not sure who this new appointee will be.
We make it quite clear there is no discrimination because as an Anglican institution, it's not the first that somebody who is a non-Anglican would have been appointed as head girl. But out of respect,
Herbie Mackenzie, the Deputy Public Defender in the Office of the Public Defender, says while Miss Basco is seemingly being religiously discriminated against, she could be reinstated and be provided with an apology. Mr. Mackenzie says if a written explanation was not given to Miss Basco and her parents, then the only conclusion to be made, it is discrimination. The Deputy Public Defender says the student has the right to not be discriminated against, and as such she should continue going to school. He also provided the option of gaining the support of the OPD. A member of the Jehovah's Witness faith who wishes to remain anonymous says while witnesses do not comment on matters in the public sphere, this is clearly discrimination. The witness says if there were any other denomination, she would not have been debadged.
All right, thank you so much, Shamara Preston there with that investigative report on what's happening at the St. Hilda's High School.
Good morning, I am Natalie Campbell with the local and international headlines. A flash flood watch remains in effect for low-lying and flood-prone areas of eastern and south central parishes until 5 this afternoon. This as a trough induced by Hurricane Joaquin is producing showers and isolated thunderstorms across Jamaica, while satellite imagery and radar observations have indicated a decrease in rainfall. The forecast is for showers and thunderstorms, which could be heavy at times to continue to affect Jamaica today into this evening. As such, flash flooding is possible over some low-lying and flood-prone areas. Fishers and other small craft operators are likely to experience gusty winds and choppy seas in the vicinity of showers and thunderstorms over both northern and southern waters during this period and are urged to exercise caution. A flash flood watch means that flash flooding is possible, and residents are advised to take precautionary measures, keep informed and be ready for quick action if flooding is observed or if a warning is issued. Meanwhile, the Met Office says conditions on Bermuda are beginning to deteriorate, adding that Joaquin will likely to bring damaging winds to Bermuda later today. At 4 a.m., the center of Hurricane Joaquin was located about 400 kilometers southwest of Bermuda. The Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM, has assumed coordination responsibility for the Bahamas in the aftermath of Hurricane Joaquin. This comes as ODPEM is a participating state of the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Agency and sub-regional focal point for Northwestern Caribbean. ODPEM says initial reports out of the Bahamas through collaboration with SEDEMA have revealed an immediate need for basic food supplies and water for residents dwelling in the affected sections of the island chain. The Jamaican government, with the assistance of the British West Indian Guard ship, has dispatched 50 tons of supplies. In addition, bedding and other comfort items have been made available as part of the post-disaster efforts. Jamaica will be deploying a rapid needs assessment team, RNAT, tomorrow. The team will comprise personnel from the Health Ministry, Jamaica Defence Force, National Environmental and Planning Agency, National Works Agency and ODPEM. Meanwhile, a 19-year-old St. Thomas woman is dead. She is believed to have been struck by lightning. She has been identified as Sajeka Walk of Hagley Gap District. Police say Walker's body was found face down under a mango tree along the Hagley Gap Main Road about 6 a.m. yesterday. According to police reports, there was heavy rain, thunder and lightning Friday night. It's believed that Walker sought shelter under the mango tree and was struck by lightning. Police say she had burn marks on her chest. A post-mortem is to be done to determine the cause of death. Finance Minister Dr. Peter Phillips is expected to hold bilateral talks with the heads of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank this week. Dr. Phillips heads a delegation which leaves the country today for Lima, Peru, to attend the 2015 annual meeting of the Board of Governors of the IMF and the World Bank. In addition to attending the plenary meetings of the IMF and the bank, the minister is also scheduled to have a series of bilateral meetings with IMF Managing Director Christine Lagarde and Deputy Managing Director Ming Zhu and Managing Director and Chief Operating Officer of the World Bank, Shri Mulyani Indrawati. While in Peru, the minister will also participate in a series of high-level meetings with his counterparts at the 2015 Commonwealth Finance Ministers meeting, which will be held October 6 and 7. In news overseas, violent storms and flooding have hit southeastern France, killing at least 16 people with 3 more missing. 3 elderly people drowned when their retirement home was inundated with flood water. Others died trapped in their cars in tunnels and underground car parks as the waters rose. French President François Hollande announced a state of natural disaster in the affected region. Finally, a series of explosions on the outskirts of the Nigerian capital Abuja have killed at least 18 people. The first 2 struck Kuje Township, one by a suicide bomber near a police station, the other at a market. Another bomb exploded at a bus stop in Niania. No group has said it carried out the attacks yet, but suspicion has fallen on Boko Haram Islamists who targeted Niania last year.
How are you doing, Mr. Fraser?
Not too bad. How are you?
I am, on the battlefield.
Yeah?
Yes, I'm on the battlefield.
Condolences to the family of the lady I heard about who apparently was struck by lightning over the weekend in the thunderstorm, somewhere there in Hagley Gap.
In Hagley Gap?
Yes, yes.
Condolences to the family.
Yeah.
Yes. So we've been getting some rains.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And,
yes.
What's good about that is that we haven't had any rains in a long time.
In a long time, yeah.
And but we're also getting some flooding.
And that's not good.
That's not good.
Mm-hmm.
What bothers me a little though is how we are as a people, because I heard a gentleman responding to the fact that his community was flooded out, and then he said,
"Where is that?"
Someplace in I'm not remembering now.
Okay, no problem.
But he was saying, the drains have not been cleaned for years or for the longest time.
Westmoreland.
And I'm thinking...
It's in Westmoreland, yes. I'm
thinking, at what... I know it's government have them rule and blah, blah. But you're going to lose your home. You're going to lose your furniture. You're going to lose stuff in your house if you're flooded out. It's great inconvenience. It's not a drain that the community could come together and clean out?
Again, we don't know the magnitude of the blockage, but yes, sometimes we have to take the initiative.
Sometimes, as
and be
communities,
proactive. Don't wait on the politicians to get it done.
I would know they're supposed to. They're supposed to.
Yeah, but if we wait on the politicians in our circumstances,
then you're going to be flooded out, and we're supposed to, send in a claim then. Send a claim in. I don't know. I'm trying to balance.
No, I see how you're trying to work it out. But when residents suffer, and if they can come together, if they can do it, and if it is possible, if they have the machinery and the manpower, then so.
If it's possible, if it's possible, clean the drain around you. Make sure you yourself aren't throwing rubbish in the drain, because that's another thing too.
Right.
Is that Jamaicans litter without thought.
That's true.
You just throw things out and you just throw them anywhere. Plastic, they don't matter. So that we have that problem.
Right.
So if we can be more aware and be more mindful of how we dispose of our garbage,
right,
then that I'm sure would cut down on the amount of block drains.
Right, because when I heard about Marcus garbage drive yesterday, then I know that there was heavy rain. Because usually there is a drain right there. Coming down East Avenue, just before you come onto the highway, there's a drain there that comes all the way from Tinston Pen and heads into the sea. And that, I know, over many years, I've always been littered with debris.
Wow, that's true. Now that you mention it.
Yeah, so we ought to be responsible too.
Yes, I'm more mindful, because you do that, it's going to come back at you. Whatever you put out there, going to come back at you. But we haven't been having much rain in this side of town.
Except periodic outbursts
here and there. But what I'm hearing about the flooding and the heavy rains in parts of Jamaica and so on, and in Ocho Rios.
No, we haven't been experiencing that.
We haven't had anything to cause a runoff. Well, as you might see the place damp, and you say, okay, it was raining, or it rained last night.
Right.
But we don't see the water trickling anywhere. Like, say, okay, yeah, man. You see that?
A little bit yesterday.
In Ocho?
Yes, just a little.
Town?
Yeah, just a little.
Yeah, okay.
But nothing, as we said before, to block any drain or to cause any kind of flooding.
No, we don't want no flooding and so on, and we don't want a block drain. But
in this neck of the wood, we better be on our P's and Q's to ensure that all drains and gullies are cleared here.
Yes, and especially the people in Ocho Rios proper. Because, I always tell my friends that there's no place called Ocho Rios. Ocho Rios is a figment of somebody's imagination. Where is Ocho Rios?
Right here.
Yeah, and this is where? This is Coconut Grove.
This is Coconut Grove in Ocho Rios.
Right, so where does Ocho Rios start and where does it end?
Let me see if I could take a guess. Ocho Rios would start perhaps at, and this is just a wild guess now.
Yes.
I would say at Duns River and end at just before you go up to White River. I'm taking a guess.
Which would be right here.
Right, I'm just taking a guess, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be a bad guess. It wouldn't be a bad guess. Yes. It's a pretty small place.
And that's extending west in the first instance.
Does it extend into the hills? Does it extend into the hills?
Because
when you get to the hills, you're no longer in Ocho Rios.
That's right. I'd say as far as Ocho Rios Primary.
Yes. Right before you
go up to Great Pond.
Before you turn that, before you hit Great Pond. Because when you get there, you're in Great Pond there.
So,
and then you're in...
So that's just my guess.
It's not a bad guess, because Ocho Rios goes all the way back to James Bond Beach in Wakabesa, depending on who's writing it or who is putting on the show.
I didn't know.
Right, and then it goes all the way back to Discovery Bay. Okay. It depends on who's putting on the show, and where you're marketing. The parish, because for tourism purposes, Ocho Rios extends to Wakabesa.
Going east.
Yeah, because James Bond Beach, you're going east.
St.
James
Mary,
Bond Beach is in St. Mary. It's not even in St. Anne.
Okay.
But have you ever said James Bond Beach, St. Mary?
St. Mary? No.
You say James Bond Beach, Ocho Rios.
And I've also read that on posters. And
yes, exactly.
Yes.
So
I'm learning as I'm going along.
That's the point. That's the thing. Right. So what are your thoughts on David Cameron's insult to the Jamaican people to forget about slavery and move on from here?
Pretty strong sentiments to want to save his taxpayers' money on his side and want to do that so much by offering us a gift as a prison.
Yes.
On the flip side, I do believe that if going forward you are trying to remove those prisoners who have a little bit of time left.
How much time?
In your penal system.
Like how much time?
Well, according to what I've read, those with 2 years or less.
No, I've not seen 2 years or less.
Okay.
The least I've seen is 4 years.
4 years, okay.
But what's interesting about that, though, is that, what's a crime? What kind of criminals are these?
To be honest, the article I read didn't say.
Okay, no article says.
Okay.
Apart from one that was written in 2007.
Okay.
Which talked about dangerous criminals and so on. Yeah.
But didn't go on to state.
Yeah, because remember, this is a conversation. This is a plan that the British have had in place since 2006, 2007.
Right.
Right. So it's not a PNP plan or a JLP plan. It's both of them plan.
Right. Working
with the government. Although we have heard Bruce Golding come out and say he said no.
Last week, Friday, yes.
Yeah, he said no to the plan. But we saw what happened to him. Right?
Yeah, that's the next story, yes.
But he didn't say what were the consequences of saying no. Because I think...
No, he didn't elaborate. No, he didn't.
Right, yeah. but there were consequences because we saw what happened to him.
Okay.
And so what do they have on the present government is a question.
As I've said before, wouldn't want to necessarily put it down to a PNP or a JLP thing. But the fact that Camron is offering us a prison as a gift is the insult in the first place. And the issue that Mike Henry and others...
But you can't insult me. You can't offer me something as an insult. All me do is tell you which I figure put it in.
That is true. Okay.
Until you figure get that.
So again, you are calling perhaps then on the politician shouldn't have entered.
I am doing that. What are you doing?
Into such an arrangement.
What do you think? No, but what do you think?
All right. Yes, the politicians shouldn't have entered in such an arrangement. If it is that,
yes.
Just a second, if it is that you're offering us a prison then, for example, and you're giving us an equal value perhaps in training of young persons, vocational engineering and so on, then I could understand.
Right. Do you see this as human trafficking?
Strong terminology. No.
You need to look into it though.
I've never thought of it.
Go look at human trafficking.
Yeah, because I never thought of it that way.
And also, because you see, this UK right to transfer, because there's a UK transfer agreement, not just with Jamaica. I mean, they've got this in Somaliland. They've got this in Seychelles. They've got this. They're trying to get it into Nigeria, and they're trying to get it into other countries that are poverty-stricken. Really, that's what's happening. But it's part of the wider prison industrial complex, a money-making situation, and if you look at it, it resembles very closely the transatlantic trade in Africans, the slave trade.
Okay.
Yeah, because when you throw in what they're doing with Nigeria, West Africa, Somalia, and so on.
Seychelles and so on. Right.
And then you take it to the Caribbean and connect it back to Britain.
Right.
It is a slavery.
You go back through the triangle. Yes.
It's a new form of slavery that at the point that we are saying you were compensated for slavery and you need to pay us for labor that our ancestors did and weren't paid.
And there is where I was going earlier, right? About Mike Henry and Bruce Golding's son, the president of the UNIA, Stephen Golding, speaking of the issues of reparation, of which Camron didn't entertain, except to say that slavery was is abhorrent.
I didn't know that Stephen did. Where did Stephen do it?
It was on CVM.
I thought you meant publicly.
No,
okay.
Yes, it was on
because
CVM.
I know the CARICOM Reparations Commission. CARICOM Reparations Commission is the one that put out the open letter through Hilary Beckles, to David Cameron, and then it was and then Mike Henry took a stance also, and then in Parliament we saw Andrew Holness saying that you must pay reparations, and not so many words, but that's what he was saying to David Cameron. I think that was bold and brave. And then he also said in Parliament, for growth and development is education over prison. I mean, better to build schools than prison. Yes. I thought that was bold and brave of him too. But it's an opposition again, and so we'd have to test that statement. And to test that statement, they've said that if they become the new government, they are not going to honor that agreement. That's what the JLP party has said. Now put it down to a partisan level. We have to talk about that too. And that's a way to test it.
Okay, because when somebody make a statement once they're out of the fire, the minute that they're in there, you'd want to see if their tone will change. Yeah. And we have seen that time and time again with our politics. But the fact that Mike Henry and Stephen Golding and others have taken the stand is to show Camron. And I've read also too, again, I'd have to do my own research to double check and triple check that Camron is from the direct lineage of... But
I don't know you're coming to the Running African Space comes to that. We've been talking about that for weeks. It shows that
benefiting
you're not listening.
from slavery, right. And all too that those slave owners, when slavery was abolished, we recall that as well.
Exactly.
Being compensated.
Exactly.
Not the slaves themselves.
46,000 enslavers were compensated in all 47 million pounds were paid in all to these enslavers. And so that when the Caribbean makes the call for reparations, it is not done in a vacuum. No. It is done understanding that legally and morally and lawfully and whatever terms you want to use, that this is owed to us. And so it was an insult. It was insult.
And he was recognized, Camron does... the ball was bowled, and he just quickly, brushed it aside.
No, he didn't brush it aside. He insulted us. He said, move on. No, he didn't brush it aside. He said... slavery was bad, but move on from that. Get over it.
Yes.
And at the same time,
it's time to move on.
Yes, and at the same time, he's saying that he has commissioned a Jewish Holocaust memorial in Britain for millions of dollars, saying the exact opposite, that we must not forget and we must not allow others to forget, and we must do this for generations to come. So we have a lot to
talk about.
We have a lot to absorb, and what we do with it is going to be very, very important. But one thing we know is that we're not going to eliminate imperialism by just shouting against it. For us, the best of the worst test against imperialism, in the words of Amilcar Cabral, is to take up arms and fight. Anyway.
And I like the fight and the energy from you on the Running African and others who are ensuring that they keep this generation and others to come, reminding them of the struggles that their forefathers went through. So today when we get up, we don't just press a button and enjoy life. There was others who paved the way for us. So,
welcome. Yes. You're welcome. You are welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
All right.
Sorry I can't be St. Thomas next week.
Next week Sunday, we're heading to St. Thomas next week Sunday. Join us there because it's going to be a big thing in St. Thomas. 150 years since the Morant Bay War. Do you realize that the very same conditions that existed at the time of 1865 in October, that existed when Paul Bogle on October 11 and those hundreds of Africans decided to march from Stony Gut to Morant Bay, that the conditions are the exact same thing in Jamaica today?
Or from Stony Gut to Spanish Town?
Right, from Stony Gut to Morant Bay. The conditions are the very and vice versa. The conditions are the very, very, very same, including, as I said earlier, the fact that the Jamaican people, the African black people, had written to the British government asking for justice, and they had written back to say, get over it, move on already, work harder. That's the exact same thing that happened. I do not know why this thing is playing out the way it is playing out.
And you see, what is good is that as a teacher, you are armed with so much information that
I am armed.
So for us as students,
I am armed and ready for the revolution.
That you keep it in our consciousness.
Yes.
That when this exists before us, and this is the shape and the form that it is now taking.
Yes. When your house is burning down, it is no use beating the tom-toms.
That's true.
No drumming around here.
Because otherwise, we are seeing it in front of us as black people.
Yes.
And we can't interpret what it really represents.
Yes. But we have to look back to go forward. And one of the things that we can draw from the lessons of history in terms of how we go forward. So when David Cameron tells us that we move on and forget the past, we can't do that.
Not at all.
Not possible. So thank you very much, my brother.
I appreciate it.
Yes, and I'll see you Monday.
And
Inshallah,
in the words of psychologist Dr. Naim Akbar, black people must talk about black stories.
Yes.
We must have black achievements in our house.
Yes.
Show the documentaries.
Yes.
For future generations.
Yes.
So that they become empowered to continue the struggle long after we're gone.
He just surprised me.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that.
I got it.
Yes, all right, well, good. We want to go to the phone lines to speak with the mother of the young lady, Ms. Basco, who was debadged at St. Hilda's High School. So we're waiting for that.
Hide nothing from the masses of the people. Tell no lies. Expose lies whenever they are told. Mask no difficulties, mistakes, failures. Claim no easy victory.
We're going to be talking to Ms. Rhonda Clark, who is the mother of Jade Basco of St. Hilda's High School. She joins me on the phone line. Ms. Clark, how are you doing?
Good morning, Andrea.
Good morning. Thank you so much for talking to us on this very, very vexing issue. What is the latest situation?
What had happened, Jade was house captain as well, and she was debadged on Thursday. When I came home for Thursday night, I saw her crying and her eyes were swollen and all of that, and I said, what happened? She said that they debadged her from being house captain, a position that Jade held from last year, right? And
so let me ask you, hold on, Ms. Clark. How old is Jade?
Jade is 16 years old.
So here's a 16-year-old girl who's doing so well in high school that she was made head girl. She was house captain. What I mean, like a prefect?
Yeah, house captain. Yes, and she was the form captain as well from 7th grade.
She was house captain and form captain from grade 7.
A lot of positions Jade held at St. Hilda's. A lot of positions. She was just naming it out just a while ago.
So she lost all of those. They took all of those positions from her.
Well, I'm not aware of the form captain as yet, but I know of the head girl and the house captain positions.
What have they said to you, Wanda? What have they said?
Well, I went up to the school on Friday morning, and I asked Ms. Johnson, I need her to show me where in the handbook states that you cannot be associated with Jehovah's Witnesses, because in truth and in fact, Andrea, Jade is not a witness. We are not baptized witnesses. We only visit the Kingdom Hall occasionally.
Yes.
And Mrs. Johnson is aware of that, because what had happened, she had mentioned the word Jehovah in a class thingy, and that's where it all sparks. That's where she gone and look on the file and see where I had placed Jehovah's Witnesses on her file as a religion.
But I don't understand, because I mean, Jehovah is all over the Bible. It's in the Bible. You can't say Jehovah. All right. Anyway, let me not go off tangent. So as a mom, here you have you came home, you found your daughter crying. We've been following this story. Thanks to Tekla for bringing it to us to our attention. So you first of all, she was made head girl. How did you feel when you heard that your daughter was made head girl?
Well, I was so excited, because this is something that Jade always wanted. She has this leadership quality in her, and she always wanted to serve, to be there, because and my feedback from the teachers and even the students there is that, they had made a good decision. Because Jade is always,
of course, a good
Jade
decision.
is walking on the road, Andrea, and students see her and sort of draw back into themselves, because they're saying Jade is COVID. You understand me?
Oh, because
she's respected up there.
She carries a presence.
Yeah.
So you have a well-behaved girl, obviously a brilliant child.
Yes, a very brilliant child.
Which class is she in now?
She's in 11 Thomas.
Right, and how many subjects at the CXC is she sitting?
Well, she's going to take 8, because the school don't allow anymore, which there is no problem with that. So she's going to take 8. I know that.
How is all of this affecting her academic work?
Well, Well, it's not affecting her because right now she just wants to excel, just to show Mrs. Johnson and the crew up there that she's moving on. But she's not happy with the fact that the whole form captain badge was taken from her.
So
because she said,
lost,
all right, you take the head girl from me, so then the house captain, I'm still there.
Oh,
fine, because of your rules and your policies and whatever, because I associate myself with the Jehovah's Witnesses. You don't want to have me as an head girl. She said, all right, mommy, leave it alone. Let it stay. Let it rest.
Yeah.
Then what she gets really upset about now is the fact that they take the house captain portfolio from her.
So
she said, no, man, this is wrong because I keep telling them that I'm not a witness. And Mrs. Johnson has never seen me opposing to do anything based on a religion point of view.
But my question, though, Mother, is, so what if she's a witness?
That is it. What if she's a witness? Yeah. That is it. But then, all right, they have their policies, they have their rules and regulation there, which I don't see where, the problem.
So did you know about these rules and policies before?
No. Because what is happening Miss Andrea, if Jehovah's Witness would have never taken such a position either, and Mrs. Johnson is aware of that. Because it's a diocese high school, Anglican high school, Jehovah's Witness don't get involved in conflicts and all of that. So they wouldn't contest anything like that. So Jehovah's Witness would have never got involved in it. They would have declined the offer.
So because
there you go. Up the offer.
That's true, because I've been to school with them. So, okay, so here you have a child a well-behaved child, because the school noticed her from grade 7 and made her form captain. They gave her house captain, and then she got the highest honor of being a head girl. And now she's being discriminated against religiously by a Christian school.
Right, because she associates herself with the Jehovah's Witnesses. I think it is personal, and I told Mrs. Johnson that it is something personal for Mrs. Johnson, and I need the ministry to investigate.
But have you contacted the ministry?
Well, I just called the ministry in Brownstown. They were saying that I need to put it in writing. But what I'm saying, what if I'm blind? They wouldn't hear my voice. What if I couldn't write?
Has anybody contacted you from the school?
No, nobody contacted me. And even in the initial stage when they had given Jade the head girl position, and they had gone on the file, because she used the word Jehovah, and they gone on the file and they saw where Jehovah's Witnesses there under religion. They should have at least called me, the parent, to find out if it's okay for Jade to remain in such a position. Because she'll be asked to read the Bible and all of that.
You know what is really sad about all of this is that we have such a problem in Jamaica with our young children, and we are talking to them every day to excel, to do well, to participate, to serve. And then when somebody does that, you have a prominent high school that turns around and literally punishes you for that.
Demotivating her.
No, punish her.
Yeah,
it's a punishment. So I want to ask now, where do you go from here? We've been trying to get the school. Can we just say this? We've been trying really, really hard to get somebody at St. Hilda's High School to talk to us, and nobody will. But as you heard in the report, we have talked to a few people. Has the Ministry of Education called you? As I said, have they said anything to you?
No, I spoke to Ms. Edlamp at the ministry. She's the head minister at Brownstown, and she told me that I need to put it in writing. Right, to her, so that she need to hear two sides of it, but then
has Jade been counselled?
Well, no. Well, Mrs. Johnson said she called her. She spoke with her at length in a meeting.
But that's not counselling. That's a meeting. Have they? But she's gonna need counselling because it's a public shaming. It's a public shaming,
and she feel like something is wrong with her. You understand? Because she works so hard, and then after a while, people they're stepping on her like this, and
How is she doing?
Well, she's okay. She's okay because right now, she's saying that she just wants to focus on doing her CSEC exams and get out of St. Hilda's right now. She don't even want to participate in anything that they have there.
Oh, Lord. But can I ask you a question? Because here you are on the program. We've been following it up. You're talking on her behalf. Are they going to take it out on her at school? Are they going to be treating her
I doubt it. I doubt it though, because as I said, the teachers and the students, because really, it's not me who come on here. It is a parent. Because the student gone home to the parent and, saying it's unfair and all of that.
Yeah,
so it's a parent
we're talking to you. That's true. We're talking to you for the first time.
Right.
And
so it's a parent that call you, and so you see where it all comes from. Even the students, is not excited about the decision that Mrs. Johnson bring down.
Yes, we're getting that from parents. Other students are traumatized by this.
Yes.
And this is why there's going to have to be some kind of a counseling, because there's an empathy from her colleagues, from her schoolmates, and they are. And they're actually internalizing this too. A parent told us that his daughter came home crying and totally traumatized by the situation. So the school is going about. This is an escalating situation that if the school doesn't get a grasp on it, they're going to be surprised to see where it goes. But please give our love to Jade, and
I will do.
We're going to keep in touch with you. I think that the ministry has to intervene at this time.
Yes, they really should.
The Child Development Agency must intervene because it is child abuse. And the children's advocate must intervene. No, it is serious. They must intervene. Yes. I saw the Prime Minister pounding the pulpit about child abuse the other day. This is one. Mother.
Yeah, and what is happening in Jade? You see the motto that they have, hard work brings true joy. Jade is even saying that, look at my hard work, and where's the true joy in this? And that's the motto of the school.
Wanda,
that's what she's saying. Where's the true joy in this?
Something has gone terribly wrong.
Yeah, and Mrs. Johnson speak about it's all about the girls, and I even said it to her. Yeah, look at what you're doing to the child.
It is abusive, and I'm not.
Child keeps telling she never object, Andrea. She has never object to do anything that they had asked her to do, and because she associates herself with the Jehovah's Witness, it is an issue.
It is a crying shame.
Yeah, it's a crime.
Tell her. You seem to have a grasp on it, and she's doing. You said she's focusing on her studies and.
Yeah, man. I told her to focus.
There needs to be some justice in all of this, though.
Yes.
Yeah. All the best, Rhonda. We'll keep in touch.
Okay, then. Thank you, Andrea.
Oh my. That's very sad. She reminds me of myself in school, Jade. Form captain from first form and just going all the way and getting all these badges and so on. And I can't even imagine to be publicly embarrassed like that. What that would have done to me as a 16-year-old in high school. All right, we're going to go to the phone line to take your telephone calls and your comments regarding David Cameron's visit, the gift of a prison, the so-called gift. Never look a gift horse in the mouth. It might be a Trojan horse. Kwame, it's an interesting morning. But we're taking our telephone calls 974-5079, 5051, 5043, and 1-888-991-4152. The numbers to call as we go to the phone line. Hotep?
Hello, good morning.
Hotep, my brother, go ahead.
Yes, good morning. Yes. I must commend you first and Irie FM for bringing so many things to the light of the eyes of the people of Jamaica.
Thank you.
I recall that fight you really put out with that the beach,
yes.
What that we call Little Duns River.
Yes. Yes.
So somewhat we have a little success, for how long.
Right.
But I just wanted to say, if we need to have a forum. I keep wanting to say Andrea, but
no, that's
I can't
fine.
remember the name.
It's Cabo.
Cabo.
Yeah.
Okay. Sister Cabo, let me tell you something. We need, as a people in this country now, to put a forum together where the people's voice can be heard. Because people power is very strong,
Yes. Yes.
But when we discuss these matters and here, and some people hear, they hear and it just go through one ears and it comes to the other.
Yes.
We've been living in a country where nobody recognizes the power of the people, and we need to do something about that.
Yes.
I'm going to touch base on the issue with St. Hilda's first.
Yes.
And then I'll go to the recent British Prime Minister's visit.
Yes.
But as it is for St. Hilda's is was known for a school that dictate the people who went there in the past.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering if the slave mentality is still there. I don't need to ask if it is still there, because now it is showing up that it is still there.
It needs looking to at least
right
to see what's happening there. Yes.
Now, if I had my way, I would have all the students, the parents, just if the parents want to show their power, they'd have all the students withdraw if the ministry doesn't intervene as soon as possible.
Yes.
The child advocate must involve.
Yes.
Because the Child Development Agency and the Children's Advocate must get involved. This is a situation that we were told that we have freedom of religion.
Not
it's
quite.
our choice.
Not quite. Obviously, from a sentimental case.
Sister Cabo, I know that there is no such thing in Jamaica. If you look at our constitution, many things it say, at the end it will say except for. And in the event.
That's always an exception.
And that takes away all the rights that they give to you.
All right, so let's move to the next one, just because we have quite a few callers lined up. So
right.
the next point
the next issue is that I'm very upset that the government that we have is sitting quiet and taking a compromission from the British Prime Minister. The Caribbean make a move for reparation. And here you go. The Prime Minister come with a fancy package. If you notice, it mentioned for the region, the Caribbean region. Because CARICOM is what take on reparation issue. Right? So I'm just saying, how can we sit here as a government of Jamaica and taking this bribe? If you bring a civil suit against somebody and then somebody come up and offering you outer court settlement, they're bound lose already. That shows an indication that I've lost the case. That's why I want to settle.
Yes, we're
so what do you settle for? Settle for nothing against what you can, against something that you could have?
Yeah, the government of Jamaica has found itself in a compromising situation. It's prostitute-like. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
You want to comment on that, Kwame?
I have nothing to add.
All right, okay. Let's go back to the phone lines. Hotep?
Uncle John Sineb.
Uncle John Sineb, Garnet.
Right.
Yes.
And greetings to Brother Kwame.
Greetings, Brother Garnet.
Yeah, you said something earlier that I want to agree with about the Saturday school. I think, well, first of all, those of us who can should take our children out of the school. But those who can't, it boils down to what we teach our children at home. You know?
And the question is, what is the obligation of the state?
Yeah, well, the obligation is one thing. What they do is a different.
Right. So what is our responsibility in ensuring that they do what they are obliged to do?
Do what we can do it till such time when we clear them out of the way.
You see, I have a problem with gradualism, but Garnet, you said you were agreeing with something Kwame said about the Saturday school, and Kwame, you want to build up on that point a little bit?
Yeah, because the Saturday schools, one can make our children more competitive. You can add an African humanity to the lack of humanity in the curriculum, and you see this also in the States as well. And you can also debrief and counteract what they're learning in school. I mean, and even beyond the Saturday schools, every parent every day should ask their children what went on in school today. What did you learn today? So you can counteract certain things. I'll give an example. My oldest son one day came home and he said, well, the teacher said that the Egyptians used slaves to build the pyramids. And he said, Daddy, I don't think that's true. And I said, well, you know, let's go through the evidence here. Let's look at what the workers used in the pyramid. How were the pyramid workers fed? And they found out that they were fed veal and all these royal type of meals. So slaves aren't treated as royalty in building pyramids. Mm-hmm. So he presented that evidence to the teacher, and the teacher reluctantly agreed with him. But the fact is, for him to know and to him to speak truth to the falsehood. And again, Saturday schools, you can involve other projects too. If you have a group of children, you can involve little economic projects. I mean, I worked in a rites of passage program where we built a solar oven. It was a crude oven. It was 120 degrees F it got up to, but still, if you were to do this in your Saturday school and made a nice set of nice solar ovens, the children could sell it to people who cook chicken on the road and things of that nature. So it's a matter of building up that self-determination. And I think it's okay to demand of the government proper education, but we have to take a parallel path to properly educate ourselves. And there's always been a history of us as a people when the government wasn't providing those things. And I'll go to the example of the states again. In the wake of emancipation in the states between the 1865 and 1875, blacks in America started 2,000 schools, and the literacy rate improved from 20% to 80%, which they said was the highest increase of literacy in the history of mankind. So we have to take that self-determination and take that in our own hands until government responds in a certain way. And I'll also say that throughout here in the Caribbean and throughout the States, the governments are basically outside governments. They're beholden to other people. They're beholden to the bankers. They're beholden to their financiers. And so you really can't call any of these governments of the people. So something like a Saturday school helps people practice self-governance. So when you're forming a voice of protest, you know how to select your leadership. Mm-hmm. You know how to demand of your own leadership. You know what characters they have, and you also know whether or not they have accomplished tangible things, so they can justify being leaders.
Got it?
And Cabo.
Yeah.
What David Camron is talking about is European business, and what Xi Jinping is talking about is Chinese business. You know what we must talk about?
You tell me.
You know, follow Marcus, our own business.
Well, exactly, but we follow Marcus by doing what Marcus Mosiah Garvey says that we should do, and also follow his example. Because my point, is that we can't say as much as we want to say, but we, as Kwame Ture tells us, we're not what we think we are or what we say we are. At the end of the day, we are what we do, even as a people. So we could talk about African business until we die if we're not doing it. And we're getting some tangible examples from our brother Kwame in terms of the Saturday school, in terms of its self-determination and so on. What you can do, he talked about the oven, building that oven, and how you could really sell that back, a solar oven, to the people who sell a pan chicken. My mind just gone in 15 different directions when I heard him said that. So I think this is where we're going to have to go. We're going to have to begin to act upon what we're saying. But thank you, Ghana. Black Power. Thank you. Which is what Black Power means, unity for development.
That's right.
It's not just a slang. All right, so let's go back to the phone lines. 974-5079. I see my sister Valerie Dixon on Facebook, and I so agree with you. All the points you've made there on Facebook. All right, let's go back to the phone lines. Hotep?
Black-hearted and perfect love greetings.
Hotep, my brother.
Good to be here.
Welcome, Akwaba.
I want to welcome you to the conclusion that we reached to, and we spoke some programs ago concerning this time for armed struggle, Yeah, man, we have to take it to that level. I'm talking about levels, We need to take the black struggle as it continues to another level, put on a new face. And it's not even a new face, it's just that it's not being all embracing over the period of time, And I'm talking about now, specifically talking about mobilization. We need to mobilize the masses. The power is in the masses. We need to forget
go ahead.
Somewhat about the roast foods and even those in the right race who are doing what they are doing, and mobilize the people. If you look at when Malcolm X said non-integration, and the blacks in America refuse to embrace that collectively in their mass formation and integrate. Look at what is happening in America now.
I was having a conversation with Muta on Thursday, not on air, just in my office, and we were talking about, just the state of the race, and one of the things, and how we move. I mean, we've come this far. Where do we go from here? But one of the things I said to him, you know, and I saw him looking at me, and we don't talk about it yet, you know, is that you know, Martin Luther King had his place in terms of a non-violence, but Malcolm X also had his place in terms of the civil rights movement.
In terms of whatever,
So we're going to have to look at our condition and to determine how we move from here. I hear you talk about mobilization. I'm going to let Kwame respond to that. Thanks so much. Hang up and listen, all right?
Yes, down.
All right, go ahead, Kwame.
Yeah, mobilization is very important, but we have to learn from some of the mistakes that we made in the 60s in the sense that now we have to really assess the character of those who are mobilizing us. And I remember a friend of mine was saying that, you know, we have a document how to assess our characters, and that's the 42 admonitions of Ma'at. And so when you're choosing leadership of a small group or organization, you have to sit down and say, how best do they embrace these principles? Mm-hmm. And then, again, how are they accomplishing tangible things? Do they listen to advice? Are they willing to be corrected? Malcolm had advisors around him outside the nation. He had John Henry Clark, Dr. Ben.
Dr. James.
Exactly. So Marcus Garvey had to be reelected every so often. And then if you look at his, when he came to America, Robert Love was good friends with John Edward Bruce. And John Edward Bruce was very critical of Marcus Garvey when he first came to the United States. And Marcus humbly took the criticism to where John Edward Bruce became his most trusted advisor. And so we have to learn leadership isn't just dictatorial, it isn't autocratic, it's about being willing to be corrected, being willing to be advised, and listening to good advice.
And I like that you're saying that we need to learn from the mistakes of the past and pay attention to who's mobilizing us and ask those questions. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Hotep?
Good morning, Kabu.
Hi, how are you doing?
Not as usual. Kabu, I would like to really know, what is reparation? What is reparation? What is it for?
What is reparations?
Yeah.
How is it defined, you're saying?
What is it for? What is it for? It's all about the money.
No, it's not all about the money. And what the CARICOM Reparations Commission has done, which I like, is that they've got a 10-point claim, which includes not just the worth of it. The value might be valued in monetary terms, but there's just so much more in terms of education and health and repairing the damage that was done. It's not just about cash in hand, and I think this is where the public education is going to come in important, so that a wider cross-section of a nation can understand that.
Right, Kabu, what I'm saying, look how much people in Jamaica living less than slaves. At least in slavery, them used to feed, slave master used to feed them.
Hello? All right, she's gone. Hello? All right, I think we lost her. Yeah, she might have been holding. I'm not quite sure where she was going. Could you figure out where she was going?
No, not quite. But I mean, you know, reparations, like in a place like Jamaica, could be land reform. You know, that's not necessarily money, but the development part is, how do you make sure farming is viable for a country like Jamaica? I mean, you know, why is so much of the country in urban areas? And, you know, Marcus Garvey said land is power. Malcolm X said land is power. All our great leaders said land is power. Our ancestors knew land was power. That's why they left the plantations and the apprenticeship to get their own plot of land. So reparations involves that as well. So, I mean, it's beyond money. There's a monetary value to it, but these are some tangible things that can be done. And in theory, the empty lands in Jamaica are crown lands. So does that mean the Queen still owns it?
Yes, it does mean that.
So that'd be one of the easiest forms of reparations, just open up the land.
Well, there was a young man who was picking ackee. They say he was stealing ackees from the crown lands on King's House. He was sent to prison for a while there. All right, let's go back to the phone lines. Hotep?
Hello.
Yes, Hotep, my brother, go ahead.
Morning.
Yes, morning.
Well, I tell you, the damage is so bad. I tell you, in Jamaica here, when I was going to school, you know, when they put us in line, they put all the bronze one at the front. And even in the classroom, we couldn't sit down at third bench. We have to go all the way to second or back bench.
Why?
I don't know, but the brown ones used to be at the front.
Oh, okay, that's what you're saying. So the line, yes, okay.
When time to pass to go to high school, we noticed that all the brown ones them was going to the traditional high school. And it's just about when I become an adult, I realized that they wasn't passing any exam to go there. They were just sending them there, once them brown. And the damage of this country is so bad because up till now, we are not building community, What we are doing is building place to live. Yeah. Because man building house, so in wall you up, you can't see over there, you don't know a number, and then your neighbor. Yes. We're not building a community.
Because you see, that's the thing, is that there's something has happened to us, which is pretty recent, in terms of the extent to which we have grown to mistrust and to fear each other. So it's cannibalistic in a way that we have turned on each other, we're mistrusting each other, and we're fearing each other. Somehow. Because when I was growing up, I didn't see that, and I don't know if it existed, and I was protected from it. But I know that now more than ever, that is our reality.
It was really bad. Even my parents, they died as slaves out by Rosal there, right? They died out there because there was barracks. And I go out there and I couldn't go over the great house unless I pay, right? And when I look and see when my four parents died, I don't even know where they're buried.
Yes, and that's the thing, as you said, that you don't know where they're buried, that our ancestors are neither named nor honored. But what we have done is that we have named and honored, and we continue to do that, the ancestors of the enslavers. Like we've got the Ian Fleming Airport, we've got a roundabout in Anota Bay that is named after a man from the European Union. We've got streets and lanes and buildings and vistas and so on named after the enslavers here. And this is something that is very, very active, happening now. Just a few years ago that they called the Moscobel Aerodrome the Ian Fleming Airport. So it is, what are we going to do about it is a question. You see, I think that's where we are. Yeah.
And some of our leaders, they must, while they are escalating in the big this and big that, are advancing, they must remember where we're coming from. Because even David Camron come here, he must just go back to his bed one night and ask himself where he get his first money from. Where his parents get his first money.
Do you think he has a self-reflection? He doesn't strike me as a person that has self-reflection.
How these guys sleep? How they sleep?
That's enough.
How they sleep?
Well, if you don't have a conscience, you can sleep.
My parents died on that plantation out by Rosal. My great-grandparents. Right? And David Cameron have party, his parents have party every weekend in England.
And then he
my
comes.
Parents.
But I think what you have to look at is that the David Camerons of the world look at us as pieces on a chessboard. He even looks at his own kind as pieces on a chessboard that you can easily discard or use for your own purpose. So we have to get out of that role that we're appealing to somebody's conscience. And I think that's why I think the reparations movement has to more emphasize power dynamics as opposed to moral dynamics. It's a moral issue for us, but it's not a moral issue for those who enslaved us. Yes. So we can't proffer this as a moral issue anymore. This has to be done as geopolitics. It has to be done as a power issue.
Caller, thank you so much.
It's only a pity that we have to die.
No, we die, but you see, I am my ancestor, and I don't know about that death thing. So thank you very much. Yeah.
Yes,
man.
Yes,
all right. You see, we perpetuate the race, and that is what the European understands, and so they plan for hundreds and thousands of years. The prison that is to be built in Jamaica, the short-term plan, it is to be built by 2020. They had that down.
Yes, they do. They have it down, but the other thing a lot of us don't realize is that, again, the Western European world is losing power, so their planning horizon has shortened. To a certain extent, the building of a prison is an act of desperation on the Cameron government. The fact that he has to, quote unquote, shower the Caribbean with $300 million when you have massive austerity programs in the UK, shows a desperation and fear of the Chinese and other BRICS countries in the Caribbean.
Yes.
When you're dealing with partners, quote unquote, or adversaries that are desperate, it gives you somewhat of an upper hand as a negotiator. But the problem I see again in the Caribbean is, you have these, excuse me for using this term, these little countries, individually negotiating against, Big Britain or Big Bad United States or China.
I think that, and this is why we have to go back to the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative, Kwame, because when it comes to the CBSI, it's a Caribbean. 2007, when Derek Smith went to Trinidad, it was about building prisons. It was about militarizing the Caribbean waters, and they all signed off on it. This is how they take decisions against us. But when it's decision that will profit us, then it becomes an individualistic kind of a situation where each state is standing by itself. Let's go to the phone lines.
Gracefully.
Yes, greetings.
Yes, we'll have a Templeton. Andrea?
Yes, greetings.
Kabul.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Sabakan from the RAF. I am calling on, the first thing I would like to comment on is about the thing he said about the minister, the advice of the minister, when he said that Haile Selassie endorsed slavery.
Yes.
That's totally a lie, because I have studied everything about His Imperial Majesty, and he was the first person in Ethiopia to do away with slavery.
The entire article was a lie, but you see what's important to know and what is critical is to call him on the lies, but also to understand that he is an advisor to the Minister of Education.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, and that is ludicrous to me that someone like that would be in such position. Now, the second thing I want to say, because I don't want to keep up the time, I know other people's on the line, is that I was very much insulted by because this is how I got Mr. Camron speech when he said that he don't think that he should apologize for slavery, and that reparations shouldn't be the way to go. I think this is another slap in the face, and I think that we need as every individual, Rastafari, Pan-African and so forth, need to come together as one and make a voice, a real strong voice, and work like what the doctor is saying or the professor, to create entities that would make financial gain for us at the same time fighting for reparation. The other thing I'm saying quickly is that I don't think reparation should not go hand in hand with repatriation as well. I mean, I think it's a choice for ones that need to go home, that would have that choice as well, because Africa
repatriation is one of the tenets of reparations.
I'm looking at the paper here, and it's not on the paper.
It's there. It's in the National Commission of Reparations and the CARICOM Commission on Reparations for reparations. That's one of the pillars.
Okay, but the paper I have here just
not saying that.
Okay, it does not say that. This is not really another thing really pertaining to this as well, but from where African-centric, I think I need to say this as well. I think discipline and order and principle is something that we need to have. I don't know if I agree, and I think you do.
I do, and we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Brother Kwame, for coming in. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you for inviting me.
Let's go to the phone lines, Hotep.
Yes, Anja.
Yes.
I just called to make a behalf of Camron. That man come in Jamaica with that evil powers. And what him saying in the House of Parliament is only one man could respond to him, and is Andrew Wallace. I give thanks to Andrew Wallace's powers, what him have. Him is really a leader. The government of Jamaica now, I don't know what she's doing. They don't say anything about what David Cameron come say.
Well, she did say she raised a matter of reparations with him, and she went on quickly, though, to say that I raised it, but I didn't really want to raise it. So read her statement very, very closely. The one where she said, I raised the matter of reparations, and you see that she told him that I raised it, but it's forced me to raise it. Thanks so much for calling, all right?
All right, bless.
Okay, it's an interesting statement. Have you seen it, Kwame?
No, I didn't see the end of that statement. So what did she say in the whole statement?
Well, basically, it was just a comment at the press conference where she said the matter of reparations was raised with Camron. But I don't have it verbatim here. But basically, what he's saying is that we raise a statement, we raise a matter, and we just never want to do it. We were forced to do it, Mr. Camron. So bear with me while we raise it. That's basically what he's saying. Thank you so much, Brother Kwame, once again for coming in.
Thank you, Sister Kabu.
How can people communicate with you?
Oh, they can get me at Kwame Pianke at Comcast.net. That's the easiest way to communicate with me, or you can get me on Facebook or link me up on Facebook. So that's the easiest way to communicate with me as well.
Kwame Pianke. Thank you, my brother. This is how we're going out for today. This is a call to action. A call for organizing, a call for organization, and a call for consciousness raising. What we do with what we know is going to be critical right here. Because if we lose now, we lose forever. It's an opportune time. It's a good time. And we have been talking about some of the negatives, but there is a positive spin on all of this. Because now is the time. Now is the time to organize. Now is the time to lift our consciousness. Now is the time for grassroots campaigning. Now is the time for growth and change. Now, this is the best time. Out of conflicts, and when we seem as if we're at our lowest, it's the best time to form friendships, to rebuild friendships, to give birth to a new organization. Now is the time for unity. Take care, walk good, and tell them other one howdy. See you next time. Thanks so much to my broadcast assistant, Monique Price. And to you for listening, my brother Kwame Pianke. To you on the internet and the social media at Facebook and also on Twitter. Walk good.
Tina bando konto sismisele Ukuwa bulala Wana amabulu
When we lose our African connection, we lose our rural connection. When we disconnect ourselves from Africa, we cease to be a world people. Without the African connection, we are a disjointed people, begging for the entry into somebody else's house.
Freedom, oh, freedom over me. And before I'd be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave. Oh, yeah. And go home to my Lord and be free. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I'd be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Everybody. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Sing it, sister. Oh, freedom over me. And before I'd be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. No more moaning, yeah. No more moaning. No more moaning. No more moaning over me. And before I be over me. And before I free.